welcome to Inside the Birds Pregame Live presented by MOJO. We are here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook on Delaware Ave, where Philly loves a winner. I'm Geoff Mosher alongside my co-host Adam Caplan. Back with us today, as always, we got our tape breakdown czar. His name, as you know, is Greg Cosell. What's up,
Jeff,
Greg?
how are you?
Good. You having a good weekend? No college football to watch?
I know. It's a little weird yesterday. I was watching all college hoops yesterday.
Oh, that's good. A little switch, a little diversion.
Yeah.
All right, we will get into your tape breakdown of the Division III games. Jason Avant, no college football broadcasting for you. No Michigan sideline radio. So
no, I was forced to watch the Heisman Trophy and see that it's all quarterbacks like it is all the time. I hate that.
I know.
Maybe because I'm a receiver, but I hate that the quarterbacks get all the credit for everything.
What did Devontae Smith win? Did he win the
was
Heisman?
the last.
No, he didn't win.
What did he win?
Yeah, he won the Heisman.
Devontae Smith?
Yeah, Devontae won the Heisman.
I did. Right.
I thought he did.
But it's majority like quarterbacks.
Quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh Heupel won it. I mean, come on.
There's some good college players.
There are some good
Wake
college
up.
players. There are. And Caleb Williams is going to be probably a really good one to watch next year when he comes back. So congratulations to Caleb Williams. All right, we got a lot to talk about today here. We got an Eagles-Giants game to break down. Now, it seems kind of late in the season for the Eagles and Giants to be playing each other for the first time. However, they will do it at MetLife Stadium today. The Eagles have some demons to exercise. They have not won there since the 2019 season.
Oh, man.
However, I know, right? The Birds are soaring, though. Ever since that loss to Washington, they've won 3 straight games. They're now still atop the NFC at 11-1. And they coming off their spanking of the Titans, 35-10. The Giants, they bring a 1-game streak of neither winning nor losing into today's game. They tied the Commanders 20-20 last week in what must have been a riveting game for people to watch. But they are 7-4-1, so this is a different kind of Giants team that we've seen in the past. Fellas, it has been more than 6 years since the Eagles and Giants have played each other when both teams had a winning record. So a little bit of a new era here in NFC East football. All right, so there's plenty of time. We're going to have a watch party here at Rivers later after we do this show. We're going to move ourselves to the sports book, Adam and I, have a fun watch party. So there's a lot of time to come down here, enjoy the drink specials at Jack's Bar and Grill, enjoy the enormous flat screen TVs that are so crystal clear, I wish I could just take one home with me. Maybe 2. They got great leather recliners, and it's just a wonderful environment to be here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. And if you're watching at home, of course you're watching at home, please leave us a chat if you're watching on YouTube in the chat box. Let us know your score prediction. Let us know if you have a question for anybody here on the panel. Let us get in, as we always do, with sort of a big picture look at this game, at this team. Adam, I wanted to start with you because you made a lot of noise on InsideTheBirds.com this week when you took the opportunity of a Kansas City loss to move the Philadelphia Eagles back to number 1 in your power ranking. So I want to ask you, besides the Kansas City loss, what goes into the decision, and why are the Eagles the best team right now in the NFL?
Well, look, you could look at both teams. You could say, okay, sure, Patrick Mahomes is better than Hurts, but the cavern, which was this big, is not that big anymore. Hurts could hang in any game. But the big issue is obviously special teams. Where former Eagles special teams coach Dave Tobe is now obviously running the Chiefs special teams. But other than that, the Eagles can match up at just about any position. The Eagles have great depth at a lot of positions. And if you just go game by game, the Eagles have been consistently better than the Chiefs. They're a little bit better right now. I just think they don't have this bad game.
Right.
Like for some reason, I don't know what the Bengals have over the Chiefs. Lose 3 straight wins. It's hard to understand. But the Eagles are the better team right now. And also when we do these projections, not just for now, it's if the season ended now, who would be the number 1 team? That's why I look at it. The Eagles are the better team. It's like Eagles 1 and Chiefs 1A.
All right. We are also going to get into this later in the show. I have a question for everybody involving the power structure of the NFL, we'll say. Greg, I want to move on to you and get your big picture summation of why the Giants, who have mostly the same personnel as last year, a couple of new additions, of course, but a different coaching staff, why are they 7-4-1 in your mind? What is it that is different about them?
Well, the big picture view would be that coaching matters. Obviously, they have Wink Martindale as their D coordinator. He's been doing this a long time. I spoke with an offensive coordinator this week who said he's one of the most difficult guys to play against. And he's very schematic. So while every coach wants to have great players, that's what you'd like to have, scheme, particularly on defense, can at times compensate for that because pressure schemes don't necessarily require great players to execute. You know, you're not asking a DN to win one-on-one against an offensive tackle or a D tackle to win against an offensive guard. You're winning with your scheme. Martindale is a master at creating overloads with his front looks, you know, showing pressure one side, forcing a protection to slide to that side coming from another side. He's very good with disguise and late rotation in the secondary. He plays with a lot of defensive backs. Last week, for the second time this season, he played 21 snaps with 7 defensive backs. No one does that in the NFL.
Right.
So it's different. You have far more speed on the defensive side of the ball. So the defense is better than it was a year ago. I don't know what the numbers say, but it's more difficult to play against.
Right.
That's my point.
Right.
Offensively, I would say that early in the season, even though they don't ask Daniel Jones to throw a lot for the first, they're 7-4-1, so they've played 12 games. For the first 7, 8, 9 games, Jones was really, really good in the second half on third down. He made a lot of big third down throws. The numbers overall, you wouldn't look at it and say, wow, Daniel Jones is just really killing it. But he made a lot of big third down throws in the second half of games. Offensively, it's interesting because their O-line has been a revolving door. Their receiver position, I think Jay could probably go and start for them right now. You know,
on the outside,
they're not playing much.
No, the receiver position is not very good at all.
Right.
So they don't really get explosives. You know, and we'll get into. I'll leave the Barkley conversation for a little further on because I have very strong opinions based on tape study about Saquon Barkley, but I'll leave that alone for the moment.
It sounds like in the big picture, and we're not bashing.
They're not a very talented
No,
team,
no, we're not bashing Joe
overachieved.
Judge or Patrick Graham or Jason Garrett, but
No,
it
these
sounds
are
like you feel
statements
like
these are facts.
this coaching staff
Yeah.
is capitalizing on
Yeah.
its what it can do and scheming its way to try to win games.
And I thought that they had better personnel last year because you had Bradbury back there, especially in the secondary.
Fair point.
There's a bunch of no-name guys out there that are making plays for them. They got hurt last week with Gilbert, the backup nickel, coming in.
Yes.
They got hurt later in that game to tie it. But other than that, you're playing with a bunch of no-name guys back there that anybody can exploit. Right. So, and he's creating pressure. You would think that the Giants have like a Pro Bowl front at times because of how many overloads that they can create, how many Aguilera, I guess he's been hurt most of the season.
Played last week for the first time.
And
really showed up on tape.
And showed up on tape. And they have Dexter Lawrence, but Dexter Lawrence may be out today. He's doubtful. But we'll see how it goes. But they have a good defensive front.
All right, Jason, with you, there's been a lot of discussion about this Eagles team and the 2017 Eagles team that won a Super Bowl. And what people have wondered is, do you see any similarities? Is this team, in your mind, more complete? Is it better? Is it not as good? How do you see this team, this Eagles team, compared to the 2017 team?
I don't think talent-wise that the two are comparable.
Really?
I
Well,
think
which
this
team is more
Is
talented?
more talented.
This
by
team?
far.
Yes,
Yeah, I think this team is
agree
more
with you.
talented by far.
Yeah.
I thought that the stars aligned in 2007 because they could be exploited when it comes to passing, and usually teams take advantage of it.
Yeah.
But they were able to overcome Tom Brady throwing for 500 yards. They were able to overcome, Matt Ryan and Julio Jones not being able to connect on a pass and on a jump ball that could have been called a pass. Like they were able. There was some luck going on with that team. This year, this team is one of the most talented teams, if not the most talented roster in the National Football League. So I think that's a big difference. And I think that our quarterback play is as good, and the numbers show that it's better.
Yeah.
What weakness does this team have?
To your point, people forget that in 2017, right, their left guard from week 3 on was Steph Wisniewski. He was a good player, but he was like a journeyman. He's a backup. And then from week 6 on, it was Hala Pulavati Vaitai instead of Jason Peters. That's
it was tough. They had a revolving door, and I remember Chris Jones giving them the work in like week 3 or 4.
Oh yeah.
Well, then they
week 2.
Yeah.
Week 2.
They won.
And they won 9 or 10 in a row.
Right.
Yeah. So they had a lot of good talent, but it wasn't like this.
Right. All right. Speaking of talent, lack thereof, who's available, who's not available. We'll get into the injury report right now. Both teams with some key personnel that won't be playing today. For the Eagles, this will be their final game anticipating that this will be the final game that Dallas Goedert, tight end, will be on injured reserve. So the all hope for the Eagles is that by Tuesday or Wednesday, he's active into the 21-day practice window. All reports were that he was looking pretty good with the shoulder. On defense, this will be game 2 without safety Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So we will see Reed Blankenship again filling in. And of course, Robert Quinn also out still on injured reserve. So they will be without him. The good news is that Avonte Maddox was activated onto the 53-man roster over the weekend. He will play today, and that should have a widespread effect also, allowing Josiah Scott, who's been filling in, to go back and be on special teams, which they needed someone of his caliber because they waived Andre Chachere and brought him back to the practice squad. Chachere out of elevations. So you see the domino effect there for the defense, for the special teams. Jay, how much have they missed Avonte Maddox to you? They've won, they're 3-1, so it's not a huge thing. But in every game, I think we could talk about the slot matchup being a little bit difficult for the Eagles.
They're game planning for the slot at times.
Yeah.
Offensive coordinators, they know that they can get yards there, and it's hard to totally isolate the slot because the defense have to put him in a one-on-one situation. So you can't take advantage of it all the time because there's so many bodies in the middle of the field.
Right.
But to have that luxury to be able to play the defenses that you want as a defensive coordinator and have the comfort of knowing that your guy is going to be able to hold up in man coverage and not play so much zone that you can go toe-to-toe again.
It was good news because it didn't seem like Avonte himself toward the end of last week was telling reporters that he felt great and he was definitely going to be able to play. He was almost given a vibe that he kept saying it's tricky, you never know, it's a hamstring.
He wanted to wait till they got back to practice because he said all he did is he ran in a treadmill underwater. So you didn't know until you got in the field. And then I guess late, it was either Thursday or Friday, he said, I'm good, man, I'm ready to go because he was able to test it.
Right.
The only question today is how many snaps do you play?
Right.
Do you play them all of them? Do you play 75%? It's just a feel thing when you get on the fake grass there.
Which will be a function of the Giants as well, because last week the Giants played 50% of their snaps with multiple tight ends.
Right.
Yeah.
So if the Giants end up playing with multiple tight ends, you can see the base defense as opposed to the nickel defense.
There you go. Yeah. As far as rounding out the Eagles' injuries, good news for them also. Quez Watkins had the shoulder. Kaiser White had the ankle. They had carried no injury designation going into this game. Healthy, expected to play. The only player the Eagles will be without who's not on IR is special teams linebacker Sean Bradley. Of course, they elevated for the second time in 2 weeks Christian Ellis from the practice squad to help out on special teams.
He's so good, Ellis. Now, I know it's only one game, but he's so fast, and he made such an impact on special teams. It's to the point where you might as well just sign him off the practice squad next week. Forget the elevation.
After his
sign him? You only get 3.
You get 3.
He's so good, and he's so explosive. They knew this in training camp, but he's a smaller guy.
Yeah.
So you didn't want to play him on your defensive side, although he got some snaps because they blew out the Titans last week. But he's so explosive. It's hard to find guys like this.
Yeah.
He made he had, I think, 2 special teams tackles, which is crazy in your.
He did exactly what they wanted him to do like, from the start.
Yeah.
Now the interesting thing,
for sure.
Yeah, to note just for people watching because we get asked this a lot. Why would the Eagles bring back Andre Chachere to the practice squad, knowing they cannot elevate him anymore because he's been elevated 3 times? Because in the playoffs, it resets and you have an infinite number of you have a finite number because you can only play so many games, but there's no tracking how many times you get elevated in the postseason. So a guy like Chachere, who is a good special teamer, could still help the Eagles, but not until the playoffs, unless they sign him again back to the 53. All right, the Giants have a ton of guys who are either out or questionable. Obviously, we've already talked about Saquon Barkley. Saw a report this morning. He's 50-50 to play. He's dealing with, and you brought this up, the Giants have like 6 guys who have neck injuries. And even Brian Dable was asked in his press conference, is there something going on there that all your guys have neck injuries? And not surprisingly, Brian Dable said, I don't know.
He just downplayed it. But look, Leonard Williams will not play today.
Leonard Williams.
Due to his neck injury. Barkley's just sore, so it's just a matter of getting the soreness out. So he is questionable. I'd be surprised if he doesn't play. Josh Zudu, who's a rookie, who they like a lot, he's out with a neck injury. Dory Jackson is not playing this week. In fact, they're not exactly sure when he'll come back.
He hasn't played for a while.
He's got an MCL sprain.
Right.
And that's the problem. He's arguably the best corner. He's also very fast.
Right.
Now, but Greg brought this up earlier. I do want people to have this illustration of what the receiver corps looked like to start the season. They projected Kenny Golladay to be their X. He's barely played.
He's been hurt.
Yep.
He can't move even when he's healthy.
Their Z was going to be Kadarius Toney. He really played, and he wanted out, and they got rid of him. Their slot receiver is going to be more or less Sterling Shepard. He tore his ACL. The backup slot was Wan'Dale Robinson. He tore his ACL. Oh, by the way, Darius Slayton tried to trade him. He's now their number one receiver.
Well, the last couple of weeks, their 3 receivers when they go with 11 personnel have been Slayton, Hodgins, and Richie James.
Isaiah Hodgins came over from Buffalo.
He came over. He's a former Oregon State kid.
Tall kid.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tall possession receiver.
Turner.
Interesting.
For James.
Richie James had an offer from the Eagles to come here. He chose the Giants.
That's right. Richie James, shout out to his foresight, chose the Giants over the Eagles because we were told he saw more opportunity as a receiver there.
He was
now,
right.
given what Adam said, we wondered where he saw that because you had the Kadarius Toney, you had Slayton, you had all those other guys.
Fell.
And here he is. He's probably maybe their number 2 outside receiver. Or is he a slot and outside?
He plays mostly slot.
He was actually their backup slot when Shepard got hurt.
Right.
He was their backup slot to Robinson. It's crazy how this is.
But Hodgins, they just signed off Buffalo's practice squad. What, 2 or 3 weeks ago?
Back in November around Thanksgiving.
Now the little Colorado round.
Yeah, the biggest impact for the Giants today, outside of Saquon Barkley, is their secondary, where Xavier McKinney is on.
NFI.
He's on NFI.
Yep.
You have Aaron Robinson, who's out with a knee injury, and there
was starting
one more.
until
and Adoree Jackson, who's out. So you're talking about 3 or 4 guys in the Giants secondary.
Well, Darnay Holmes hasn't played either the last couple of weeks.
In fact, Nick McLeod played every snap last week. He was an
McLeod.
undrafted free agent. In fact, who was the other kid the undrafted free agents? They played a ton of snaps last week.
McLeod,
Pinnock, they played.
Jason Pinnock was the safety formerly of the Jets. But there was another
starting.
Zion Gilbert. Zion Gilbert.
Right.
Got burned for a few plays.
Yeah.
Like this is, and I know it's raining a little bit, but the wind shouldn't be bad.
Okay.
I'm fascinated to see what the Eagles' approach here will be because the Giants are terrible against the run. They're playing a lot of young kids at corner. Pick your poison.
All right, we shall see. Good update there from Tropical Storm Caplan. Is it supposed to rain during the game?
Yes.
And if it does,
Yes.
is it supposed to be heavy?
Not windy though. Not very windy.
But heavy rain can still suck even if it's not
Yeah,
windy.
it depends how heavy. We don't know.
All right,
The
well, I thought
velocity.
Tropical
What do you
Storm
mean you don't
Caplan
know?
would have a
I
little
wanna
more
see
info
that.
on that one.
No, I don't get paid to do that.
Didn't catch
All
the
right.
ball too well.
So last week we all sat here and we talked to our wonderful audience about how well Jalen Hurts has been throwing the deep ball in particular this year. And then he went out and passed for 380 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Titans, flinging the ball all over the place.
Did you see the Eagles have it on their social media? The NFL Films, Sirianni was mic'd up.
No.
When the coaches went out of their mind when he had the crazy touchdown with Trey Avery covering him, where they couldn't understand how did he do it. The coaching staff, you should see, Sirianni started dancing and going crazy, and I don't know, I couldn't tell if it was Greg Delamitros or Patullo jumped up. And they could not believe it. Greg, what did that catch look like on tape to you?
It was a great catch. He wasn't supposed to get the ball.
No.
Right, he said that.
It was a clear out route, and it was 0 coverage. And it was a little bit funny because one of the running backs did a great job in picking up the backside end. And who was it? Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders. He came back and picked up the backside end, which gave him a little bit more time than normal.
Right.
And he didn't have an outlet. There was no hot route or anything like that. So he just threw it up to A.J. Brown, and he was basically massaging him all the way down the field, bear hugging him. But the great thing about the catch is that his hands were so late that the guy did not understand or recognize when the ball was coming. So he's there. The ball is in the air.
It was actually good coverage.
It was great coverage.
Yeah.
It was great coverage, but he didn't give away anything with his eyes. He didn't give anything away with his hands until the ball was literally at the defender's helmet.
Yep.
And he just did this, and the guy started to react and put his hands up, was able to catch it. So those are things that you just can't coach, and you have to have confident hands to do that. It's not an easy thing to do.
So, and the quarterback has got to be confident.
Not every receiver can do late hands.
It's so hard because you are taught to eye the football and focus on it. There's an element that it's hard to focus on the ball when your hands are down here.
Right.
Or your back is turned toward you.
Yeah. It's like
late hands is a real trait. Devontae Adams has great late hands.
It is. It's similar to like a pitcher trying to pick off first or second base. Like you got to have some type of tact to be able to do it. It's not something
a
that's
tape study thing you can do, or you just have to learn. It's in your mind. You got to practice it. How do you do it?
It's a skill. You have to practice it. Like when you're out catching, that's something that you have to do. Like you got to put in a lot of reps to be able to do that.
I sometimes try to use other sports as an analogy. There are great center fielders in the game history. There was something about Andrew Jones from the Braves,
I remember him
who
very
took
well.
the most. He knew in his mind how to get from point A to point B to get a line drive that most ordinary center fielders could not do, even if they were good.
Yeah.
He was just that, he could play that much further in to take away the shallow fly to be able to get that deep.
Yeah.
And he just knew the right trajectory. And I always kind of just having the late hand, just knowing when to be where they have to be.
It was actually a great throw, too.
Yeah. It was. And that's I wanted to bring that up to both of you. Jay, as a receiver.
I don't know why he chose that one, though. Like,
that's exactly what I wanted to ask you.
Laid it toward, because Devontae was kind of running like a late 10-yard out-ish. I probably would have laid it on the sideline, maybe.
There was another NFL Films clip, and I'm pretty sure it was that play. Maybe I'm right. I'm almost sure it was, where we had a sideline sound, and one of the coaches said, you know, the ball wasn't supposed to go there.
Oh, yeah.
Great. It wasn't.
And then they go, oh, great catch.
But this is not
Well,
the
it was
first
the same
time.
to the touchdown to Brown versus Pittsburgh when
That
they had the
was- bring that
dagger.
up.
And technically on that, 99.9% of the time, the inside guy running the vertical and
Never
dagger is a clear route, and you're throwing the dig underneath.
I've ran that route, I don't know, a million
Right.
times. I've gotten it one time.
Right,
in
it's
10
a clear route.
years. It never
It's a
did.
clear route. And by the way, on the one on Pittsburgh, Smith was wide open. But I think what you're seeing, just as a general point, then I'm sorry, you know.
No, this
we're
is
going
exactly
with-
where I wanted to go
Right.
with this.
Is I think what we're seeing, and it's probably a confidence thing, but the Bengals do this a lot. Burrow's a master at this. What the Eagles are doing now with Hurts, Smith, and Brown is when it's one-on-one outside the numbers, Hurts is throwing the ball. And again, we don't know every single call, right? You may have a better feel for this. You know, we're not in the game plan meetings, we're not in the huddle. My guess is not every play is designed to do that, but I think there's a confidence factor now where, and it doesn't have to be pure man, because if it's zone, let's say it's cover 3 and your receiver has a plus split outside the numbers, it still becomes one-on-one.
Yeah.
If it's a vertical route outside the numbers. So, you know, Hurts is feeling really confident now, putting it up, especially to Brown, to make those kinds of catches.
Adam, I'm a PFWA voter, Pro Football Writers Association. So are you. I think that's the only association we vote for. Right now, if the season ended today, it's between Hurts and Mahomes, and I think you can make an argument that Hurts is the MVP of the league.
Well, my only thing is, though, Greg could attest to this, and Jay can as well. Mahomes has been asked to do a little bit more without Tyreek Hill.
Yes, you can argue he lost a lot, Hurts gained a lot.
Again, I don't want to
context,
devalue what
right?
Hurts has done. He's been unbelievable.
Right.
And big time MVP candidate, but Mahomes has to do some stuff. Sometimes guys just are not getting open. They don't have that downfield element. Eagles do.
I hear you. Now I got to make my case here.
Go ahead.
Let me just go. I would probably lean Hurts
ahead.
right
I'm
now.
so curious to see where this conversation is going.
I would lean
right
Hurts
now.
right now
You're
myself.
next.
Yeah, I'm so curious.
I would just say I would lean Hurts right now, but even given what Adam said, that is a good reason for why what Mahomes is doing is really good, but Hurts has his team at 11-1 and has improved in so many. I mean, you could give him Most Improved Award or Offensive Player of the Year, but I think I guess here's the question, Jay, and you can add, if you flip-flop the quarterbacks in situations, does Jalen Hurts have the same record for the Chiefs? It's just tough because everything's contextual.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs would be a better running team.
Yeah.
Right away, and I don't think that Jalen Hurts should be able to get penalized because their team can run the football.
Right.
When you sit back and look at it, I looked at it yesterday. Mahomes has 469 attempts. Jalen Hurts has 357 attempts, right? So he's able to throw the ball a little bit more. But when you look at average per play, Jalen Hurts' average per play is higher. All right, his interceptions are lower. Yes, he takes a little bit more sacks, and Jalen Hurts doesn't have a Hall of Famer that he's playing with. Kelsey is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And that's that his stamp is already stamped in history. Travis Kelsey is, right? And the other guys that they have, I see guys streaking down the field all the time. Valdez getting down the field. There's something going to be worked in there. There's a bunch of guys, and I don't know, maybe Coach Reed is maybe a Hall of Fame coach too.
He will be.
Right?
He's in there. Yeah.
Do you think that Sirianni's a Hall of Fame coach at this point?
No, but
in
he's
time?
done a hell of a job.
Second year as a head coach.
What I'm saying is
brilliant job.
I'm saying, like, when you break it down, yes, Mahomes' numbers are a little bit better. But when you consider everything, Jalen Hurts, if you average it out based on the attempts, he would be doing the same thing as Mahomes. Because his numbers are better and his completion percentage is higher with less interceptions if he had more opportunities based on this year.
The one thing I want to pick up on, which is what I love about Hurts more than anything, is he doesn't turn the ball over. Last year, he didn't have the great group of guys to throw to. He's just a different player.
Yeah.
It's one of the best progressions we've seen in this market, really any position of offense in years.
Well, the larger question, which is impossible to quantify, is scheme and team relation to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is impossible to quantify.
That is the tough. You can't
Okay.
just sub one guy for another
Right.
and run the same.
Because Jalen Hurts is having a phenomenal season. That's inarguable. But Jalen Hurts does not, and again, Adam made this point that there's no knock on Hurts here. He's playing great football.
Right.
But Jalen Hurts is on a complete offense that can win multiple ways.
Yep.
And a complete team that can win with their defense as well. So how do you quantify
It's
that?
tough.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you,
You know.
with these awards, there's a lot of subjectivity in them to
Yeah,
begin
I mean,
with.
it's impossible to do
This
that.
is a hard one.
The
Yeah.
one thing that you can do, and I don't want to come across like Jalen Hurts can't throw the ball like Mahomes.
No.
You just can't. But when you add in the element where he makes teams be one-dimensional, I think that the Eagles can go into a game plan knowing that they're going to have these 3 or 4 coverages based on who our quarterback is. And if they do something else beside that, he's going to kill them running the football.
Right. Guys, do you guys both, when you watch tape, do you see the other team
And
react
that's
to
MVP stuff.
Hurts' ability to run? Do you see them back off? Like, how does he impact?
Well,
What would you say?
I think you see it in specific situations. In other words, he's in the gun a large percentage of the time. So anytime he's in the gun with an offset back, you have his own read dimension to your offense. So that changes the way a defensive end has to play.
There you go.
Yes.
Right off the bat. And then when you get into, let's say, a 3rd and longer situation, I don't mean 3rd and 15, but let's say 3rd and 7, you have to be 100% concerned about Hurts running the football.
Yeah.
So you have to, but you could say that about Mahomes to some degree. You could say that about Josh Allen.
Sure,
you could say that about other quarterbacks.
Quarterbacks. And Josh Allen definitely has that. So what I'm saying is your number of zone is going to go up because you know that even if you play man, you have to account for him, which is still one less guy in the passing lane.
Right.
Right.
So he's making the team better.
Well, I was just going to say, now that we mentioned Josh Allen, again, he's thrown a couple of bad picks, so in people's minds he's now out of the race, but we still have a number of games to go.
Right.
And they do have the best record in the AFC.
They do.
So we'll see how it plays out.
Yep.
But really until the last couple of weeks, and it's still nowhere near what the Eagles can do, Josh Allen was basically asked to be Superman every single week. They could only win if he played great football.
Correct.
That's really hard to do, no matter how good your quarterback is. So again, I'm not...
No,
I don't do this. I don't make lists. I don't do this stuff.
Yeah.
This is good.
But I'm just saying that, Josh Allen is a guy, even going back the last 2 years, essentially has been asked to be Superman every single week.
Yeah.
And for the most part has been.
Does.
Yeah. Let me.
We do have the team that if we wanted to take the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands and run it, we can do that
Like
and
last
win a
year.
football
Right.
game.
And by the
that
way-
right there is a case against Jalen.
And by the way, they've done that. They did that against Arizona when they needed to score. They did that against
Jacksonville.
Dallas when they needed to score. Now, they did it against Indianapolis, but again, that plays to Jason's point that Hurts is part of the run game.
In that game, he was
In
more
that
than the
game,
other
he
two.
was.
Right.
But the Eagles can line up and run the ball
Right.
when they need to.
Absolutely. Let me put a bow of what I think is a fair and objective bow on this.
I think we had a fair conversation
Yeah,
about.
That was
no,
great.
and I think
Yeah.
the fairest thing to say about the MVP is that it is a seasonal award for whoever has the best season in the NFL. It doesn't mean you're the best player in the NFL
Right.
or at your position. I think Jalen Hurts right now is having the best season and is deserving for MVP. If the entire league were free agents and redrafted, I'm fairly confident Patrick Mahomes would be the first player, if not quarterback, at least quarterback taken, and then maybe even Josh Allen,
would
but
be
that's
taken.
sort of irrelevant to the
Allen would be
conversation.
taken before Hurts.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Probably.
Well, Joe Burrow too.
Yes.
And maybe
those
Joe Burrow
three
too.
guys when it comes to quarterback.
Not
are
everybody
the cream
wants
of the
to have to
crop.
run an offense the
Yeah.
way the Eagles are running it, by the way. So, I mean, that's fine. All right, we'll move on. Oh, Jay, we have a Patreon subscriber named Ray Cunningham. I thought it was a really good question for you about Jalen Hurts, given that you've played with Donovan McNabb, who never won MVP, but was very close.
Yeah.
You played with Cam Newton, who did win an MVP, though not while you were there, and other quarterbacks that you've played with. How would you compare Jalen Hurts' talent level to that of McNabb, Cam Newton? Who'd you play with in Kansas City? Alex Smith?
Alex Smith, Michael Vick.
So you play with a lot of guys who can run and throw.
Of guys that were
Garcia,
all the athletic quarterbacks.
Yeah. How would you? And I know we're again
Oh,
up to
BY.
this point. How would you compare them?
I forgot.
I would say out of them all, Jalen Hurts is the most serious when it. I'm not attacking any guy. I'm saying I think that Jalen Hurts, as a student, and his desire and his hunger to become better with action, is greater than all those guys.
Okay. Do you think he has more physical talents than Cam Newton?
He doesn't have more. Yes, Cam Newton. Yes. Well,
okay.
Cam Newton can't throw the ball like Jalen Hurts.
Right.
Like I think Jalen Hurts is a better thrower of the football than Cam. Now, does Cam Newton have a laser? Yes, but talking about inaccuracy at times, he was
scattershot.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he had a laser of an arm, but he didn't know how to. He couldn't throw a touch. He didn't have like nuance with his game. Talent-wise,
not better.
Not better than Vic or McNabb. Talent-wise,
those guys were. Do you mean arm strength-wise or just overall talent?
Arm. All those things are talent, right? So McNabb was a great runner of the football. People don't realize.
No, he was great.
Early in his career, he was.
I feel like
he can make people miss.
Yeah.
McNabb wasn't just a bulldozer. He can make people miss. Had juke for that big body. It was crazy.
Yeah, I would say in fairness though, Donovan was sort of known for having those throws of inaccuracy where he's throwing at the. I don't see that much from.
Not anymore.
Hurts.
I think that this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to compare Jalen Hurts' best year to a career.
I think that's fair.
Of Donovan McNabb.
I agree.
Donovan McNabb had, the low balls toward the end of his career when he refused to run. But when McNabb would pick up third downs with his legs, and if he was moderately consistent throwing the ball, we won a game by more than 2 touchdowns.
That's fair. My favorite in almost every game that the Eagles played for about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, when McNabb was hot, we wouldn't lose.
And Vic, to me, was a different cat. I mean, he came into the league at a time when people still thought that you had to be 6'5", 235 and stayed in the pocket. If Vic came in the league now, I think it'd be a totally different deal. I mean, the way Vic could throw a football, and just explosive, like as a runner.
On the carpet. Oh my God.
Acceleration. Michael Vick is one of the most talented humans to ever play the game of football in general.
Of course.
And Michael Vick just needed leadership and a proper coaching, which he did not get until he got to the Philadelphia Eagles.
There you go. All right, that was a really good conversation. Really appreciate the question from our Patreon subscriber, Ray Cunningham there. If you want to be a Patreon subscriber, you get extra bonus podcasts. We do 2 per month for our Patreon subscribers. Adam does a Wednesday night chat on Discord. We do a lot of extra features. We tend to come see the pregame show, prizes, giveaways. You just go to insidethebirds.com/Patreon. By the way, more on Jalen Hurts. At 11-1 right now, which the Eagles are, and Hurts being 24 years old, 4th youngest quarterback in NFL history to start 11-1 or better, behind Dan Marino, Dak Prescott, and Jared Goff. And if that's not the strangest mix of quarterbacks you've ever heard in your life, there it is. Marino, Prescott, and Goff.
Funny you mentioned Jared Goff.
All right. Adam, we said all season that when the Eagles see an ability to come out and strike via the air, they do that. We said all season long, when they see an opportunity to come out and hit a team on the ground, they're not afraid to do that. They may be the most adaptable offense in the league. What does Nick Sirianni do to
It's not adaptable. And I've said this before here, but I've said it elsewhere, and I learned this from Bill Walsh, okay? He's a lot smarter than I am. And he told me that you have to be able to operate your run game and your pass game independently from one another, because you never know how you want to game plan in a specific week, and you never know how the game is going to play out once you start it. So if one is totally dependent on the other, you're going to have games where you have problems.
Wouldn't you argue that teams ideally would like to have that complement, but struggle with it?
Every team, in a sense, would like to have the best of both worlds, where your run game and your pass game can operate independently of one another, but yes, they can also work together very efficiently as well.
Right.
But if your pass game is solely dependent on your ability to run the ball, then you're going to have games where if you can't run the ball, you can't get to your pass game, and you're stuck. And that's why there's a lot of talk about certain teams that if they get behind or if they're in a game where they don't really have a drop-back pass game. At some point, you need a drop-back pass game, which is not a play-action pass game, a drop-back pass game.
Natural passing game, yeah.
Right.
I think the Ravens and Chiefs are great examples of that. Sometimes when the Ravens don't run the ball well, you can tell that it's going to be a difficult day for them.
And that conversation I've had with many, many coaches who say that they don't really have a drop-back passing game.
Right. And then the Chiefs, if you stop their passing game and they have to be run-oriented, that's not what they want to do all the time.
You can't stop their passing game. You can slow it down.
Slow it down, like the Bengals last year.
Last week, not just
last week,
not just last year. You can slow it down with pass rush, and you can also drop as many defenders as you can and hope they make a mistake, and that's what the Chiefs did last week. They made a few mistakes.
Right. So the Giants have a depleted secondary, but they also have one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL. Where do you see Nick Sirianni drawing his line here today?
So basically, if you go back to the Green Bay game, of course they ran historically, but I don't know if it was definitely their plan to come in it. Green Bay was so not competitive against the run. They did everything wrong. Wrong gaps, missed tackles, lunging, didn't wrap up. Even Andy Reid would have run the football. I mean, that's how bad it was for Green Bay in that game. Okay? I mean, honestly, that's how bad it was.
The man does not tell lies.
Okay? But if you look at their first half play calls through each game, more often than not, they want to throw the football.
Right.
Pittsburgh game, weather's beautiful, bombs away.
Yep.
By the way, Pacheco had 22 carries a couple of weeks ago.
Wow, I know, it's breaking news.
I know.
Shocking.
They needed to verse the Bengals, and that's what the Bengals do well. The Bengals
but look, today, to me, it's just as we just outlined it. It's whatever they think they need to do, they'll do, because the numbers show it. If you look at the personnel that the Giants put out there last week, who played a ton of snaps, 2 undrafted corners who shouldn't have been on the field. Wink muddied up. He had 7 DBs, as Greg was talking about. I want to make it hard to you see what he was doing.
Playing a third-round corner who I actually loved his tape coming out of LSU, but Flott's been playing.
Cordell Flott.
He played late in that game, right?
Yeah, but he's played a lot the last couple of weeks.
So I think it's whatever they feel will work. I think they could do either or, but if they had their druthers, they're going to throw the football.
If they run, Jay, Adam mentioned the Green Bay game and the diversity that the Eagles showed in their run game, did a lot of tackle trapping in that game. When you see this Giants team, they're not good in run, and I'm going to ask you about that in a second, Greg, but what do you like about the Eagles' run game the last few weeks?
Well, the Eagles have been, this past week, I don't think that they made as many attempts as they normally do, right?
Because they were throwing the ball all over the place.
They were throwing the ball with ease, and the guys just refused to come closer. It was a weird thing, but I thought that the Commanders tied the game. The reason that they tied is because they got away from running it.
They started to throw around a little more?
Yeah, I thought that they had a lot of opportunities to run the ball, especially in the fringe area position where you can use a field goal later in that game. I thought that they didn't hone in on that. So I think that the Eagles can run this out of any formation. I don't think when you're playing 7 DBs and 6 DBs and 5 DBs against the Eagles, our team can take advantage of that, and I think that we are more physical than they are. But I would like to hear his opinion on how can we run that.
The Giants won't play 7 DBs on 1st and 10, obviously.
Correct.
Look, we all know every team does not want to be as an offense in 3rd and long. Against Martindale, you do not want to be in long yardage situations because there's too much stress he puts on you. Now, we know that the Giants have issues at corner, but he puts too much stress on your protections. Okay, and this could be a game where if the Eagles were to get into 3rd and long situations where you could see Hurts run a lot, because there's going to be a lot of people that are, you're not sure where they're coming from. Martindale's really good at that.
Yeah.
I would expect, again, I'm just giving you my opinion. I could be dead wrong. I would expect the Eagles to throw early in this game. I would think they'll be 1st down passing in this game because they're going to know what they're going to get. That's when most defenses are most predictable with their fronts and their coverages based on film study. And I would expect that they will feel with the corners that the Giants put out there and even when they're a nickel, that they can throw on this team. And I don't feel, I personally believe the Eagles are never concerned about a 4-man pass rush, no matter who the pass rushers are.
I would agree.
I mean, last week, watching that game, and I watch Red Zone, so I see some of it, but then I watch it in detail, obviously, on tape. It was was almost not like an NFL game. It was like practice. There were no bodies around Jalen Hurts.
Well, why do you think they had so many penalties then?
Well, that I can't answer. Yeah, that I can't answer.
I would have thought that Simmons was scaring people or something or barking.
You'd have thought they were on the road in Tennessee with all those false starts.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that's a mental thing. I can't answer that.
Yeah, right.
But all I'm saying is, when Jalen Hurts was back, I mean, literally, they were stoning the four-man pass rush, stoning it.
Right.
There was no one within 5 yards of Jalen Hurts.
You know what it looked like, guys, when you go to training camp, because they can't touch the quarterback where the linemen stand there? They were standing in place. What in the world? I've never seen anything like that before.
Well, they were making them pay on some of those.
So, I mean, that's just an opinion, and I could be wrong. Maybe they're going to come out and run it. But I think they're going to come out and look to throw on early downs. And if another reason, I'm sorry,
no, you're good.
If they get ahead in this game, let's say they're up 17-3 in the second quarter, does anybody think the Giants are going to be able to score that many points?
They haven't scored 30 points this entire season.
Right.
Nor stop the Eagles' run game.
The other factor now becomes, if you get ahead early, let's say it is 17-3, now you just let the dogs out. You let the pass rush go against an offensive line that has all kinds of issues, and you could end up with a blowout.
Yeah, I think they'll make a lot of hay, the Eagles, on third down because the Giants are predominant. They love man coverage.
And
they blitz and they love man coverage. Yep. If the Eagles can pick up that blitz and or get Jalen Hurts out there on some of the lesser athletes, I think they'll make hay on.
I agree.
The only thing that scares me a little bit about first down is that Wink does a good job of mixing coverages on first down.
Yeah.
Like there's some 2, there's some 4, there's some 3, there's some man. I don't know if there's a beat. Now the defensive front can stay. But it's kind of a tough thing to you want some certainty on first down.
Right. Well, why, if the Eagles do decide to run a little more, maybe the conditions dictate, the Giants are a bad run defense statistically. Why? What do you see?
That's a hard question to answer. I mean, because
that's why I asked it to you.
I knew they weren't good, but sometimes when you watch tape and it's the run game, I feel like it's never. I think everybody wants there to be a big mystery as to why teams don't stop the run. I get asked this about all the time when teams don't stop the run. And more often than not, it's not a mystery, Jeff. It's because, number one, defensive linemen are not controlling and displacing offensive linemen. In other words, they're not playing off blocks.
Right.
Guys are going into the wrong gaps.
Right.
Or
sounds familiar. Sounds like a discussion we've had about the Eagles all year.
That's the reason teams don't stop the run.
Right.
I remember having a conversation with Ron Rivera at the Combine a number of years ago, and he said to me, 95%, and I'm sure he studied this, he wasn't just throwing this out, 95% of all runs, big runs, he's talking about like 10, 12, 15 plus yard runs, occur in the NFL because guys go into wrong gaps.
Okay.
I mean, there's no mystery to why teams don't stop the run.
I think it's part of it is, teams aren't really building themselves to stop the run.
That's it. And they don't, honestly,
too.
Yeah.
You and I have had this conversation before. When you talk to defensive coordinators, they'd love you to run all day.
Yeah.
Because that means you're just going to take up plays. You're going to be forced to score in the red zone.
Sure.
Yeah.
They love it until you play the Eagles and they can move the ball up and down the field and they don't turn it over.
Yeah. The Eagles win any way they want, but for sure.
There is a big belief in the NFL with not every coach, but some coaches, that if you want to run the ball, run the ball.
Yep.
And if you're going to take 12, 13, 14 plays to score, as long as we play really good red zone defense, but if you're going to play that way, hand the ball off. You know what? We'll tackle you eventually.
Right. Well, one thing the Giants also aren't good at is hitting and taking down quarterbacks for sacks, despite all the blitzing that you guys mentioned they did. However, they did get to Taylor Heineke 5 times last week, which was one more sack than their entire total of the 3 games beforehand. So something clicked for them.
Ojulari was back
and
last
that's
week.
He doesn't even have the script. Look at the first word, Ojulari, right?
Yeah.
Amazing, unbelievable. Tell me about Ojulari's comeback and what that meant for their long arm guy. I mean, he's got long arms.
I love Ojulari coming out of Georgia. He's not long in terms of height, but he has really long arms.
Yeah.
So he can play off. He can keep offensive linemen at a distance, and then he can bend. So he's a big factor in their ability to rush the quarterback without having to blitz if they choose not to.
Right.
So he's a better pass rusher than Thibodeau. To me, there's not even. Point. Yeah, I don't think Thibodeau to me is a speed to power guy. He's not a bender. Thibodeau's not flexible. Ojulari's flexible.
What was the comparison you wanted me to ask Greg about? Oh, do you see Kayvon Thibodeau? Based on what you just said.
At the moment, I don't see. No,
he's not here. Really, just 100 miles away. But do you? Because you've sort of, I feel like you've explained you use the same verbiage to explain Jadeveon Clowney.
Yes.
Do you see them as similar as not very bendy, but just big.
Clowney's bigger.
Yeah.
Probably 20 pounds heavier.
Uh-huh.
So I think Clowney is naturally stronger.
Right.
You know, Clowney has plays in games where just his sheer strength jumps off the film.
Right.
But he is not bendy. And in fact, coaches who have Clowney often end up moving him inside in their sub fronts because he's not an edge pass rusher.
Right.
Thibodeau, I'm not ready to say that yet about Thibodeau. He's in his first year in the league. But I watched Thibodeau in his last 2 years at Oregon. Thibodeau is a get off the ball guy. He's super quick getting off the ball. That's a major part of his game.
Uh-huh.
And he's a speed to power guy. So he gets off the ball quick and he gets into you. And he's got natural strength. But Thibodeau is not a flexible bender.
Right.
That's not his game. You know, picture this. When you rush the quarterback and you're, let's say, going to do an outside rush, you're going to reach the point, and the word people use is the arc. You get to the top of the arc. Mm-hmm. At that point, you have to be able to bend with your kind of on your inside foot. A lot of scouts call it ankle flexion. You've heard that term.
Ankle flexion, yeah.
That's not him. He's not that guy.
Right.
So he gets pushed past the quarterback when he tries to do that.
Sure.
He has to get into you and play off contact.
Sure. So with Ojulari back, did you guys see a big difference in there? I mean, because now you have him.
Yep.
You do have Thibodeau, who's better now than when he started the season. He was coming off the knee injury. And Dexter Lawrence, surprisingly, at 342 pounds, is one of their best pass rushers, at least statistically.
He's had a good year.
Jahad Ward.
And Jahad Ward,
for the Niner.
Philly kid.
Yeah, he's a Philly kid.
Yep. Philly kid went to Illinois, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Lawrence, if he can't play, is what you.
He's okay. Lawrence is okay.
Lawrence, okay. It's Leonard Williams who's out.
Leonard Williams is not going to play.
By the way, that's like if Leonard Williams could play, sounds like a pretty formidable front line.
To me, and I'm going to state this, and maybe people are going to get mad at me.
Hot take.
But I think Dexter Lawrence is what the Eagles want Jordan Davis to become. Dexter Lawrence is 345 pounds with incredibly light feet and really quick movement. He's not just a big body that stands there. I mean, he has really light feet and can rush the quarterback.
Right.
He's having a phenomenal season. I've probably watched every Giants game. I mean, he shows up all the time. Mm-hmm. He's strong. He's powerful. He's quick. He's a combination. See, strength and power, to me, those are two different terms.
Right.
Strength is when you're in one spot. Power is strength in motion.
Yeah.
And I think he's both strong and powerful.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's a type of guy who we've seen give Jason Kelce some issues in the past because of that size that he has. So to your point on Wink Martindale, the Giants blitz a lot, more than anybody in the league. They are number one in blitzes, in blitz percentage, only top 15 in hurries, interestingly, third in hits, quarterback hits with 51, and they have a pressure percentage of 25%, which is third in the league. So they're going to come after the Eagles today. That's what they do. But the strange thing is they don't have a ton of sacks, and quarterbacks have not necessarily fared great against them with an 88.7 passer rating. They're sort of up and down with how much they blitz, but they don't have a ton of sacks. But quarterbacks, to your point, Greg, are obviously rattled. I mean, 88.7 isn't bad, but it's not great either.
Right.
So it's sort of middle of the pack.
Yeah, you're dictating what the offense can do. And the goal is to get the ball out of the hand before they can make a play, make the tackle.
Right.
And they're playing offense on Wink Martindale's terms.
Yep.
And you can get burned by it. Very few teams are going to be able to consistently do it. Actually, the Commanders got 2 touchdowns off of it last week with 2 shallow crosses.
Any concern, though, about that Eagles offensive line? We've seen some picking up of blitz issues or not alignment, but assignment issues at times. And then, of course, the false starts last week was
the
weird.
Eagles are, is it a concern? Uh-huh. Yes, it's a concern because the only time that we've seen our team turn the ball over, from the pocket, different things like that, Jalen Hurts fumble, those types of things because of pressure.
When those happen, right.
So it's definitely a concern. We just have to protect the football. If you don't turn the football over, this team is still offensively challenged.
Sure.
And therefore, it will be null and void.
It's a mental challenge because don't forget, when you play a team that blitzes a lot, offensive linemen have to expand their vision. Mm-hmm. Okay, most offensive linemen, when they put their hand in the ground, and I'm generalizing, but they're not thinking beyond a certain area. I mean, their hand in the ground.
Trey Thomas says it all the time. Got the guy in front of me.
Yeah, right.
That guy
now
changes.
you have to expand your vision, okay? Because and this is practice during the week. First, it's film study, in the meeting rooms, and then it's on the field with practice. Is that, hey, okay, now I'm putting my hand on the ground, and I'm Isaac Seumalo, but I'm not just worried about the guy right in front of me, or even just the stacked linebacker. There may be a guy coming from over there. I have to be aware, based on alignment, based on people, who could be coming. So there's a mental stress and challenge. Is the Eagle offensive line great? Absolutely. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the mental part of the game.
Right.
This is one of those teams that you don't want a bunch of people in bunch formations, because that throws off everything. When you have a team that can blitz from this many ways, I saw it last week.
That's interesting. I see what you're
tight
saying.
bunches.
Yeah.
It makes it very, very hard for offensive tackles at times if there's no communication. And they gave up a sack pretty easily last week to the Giants. The Commanders did, just because of those formations. I was like, that would be a terrible situation for them to bring pressure from that 3-4 front, and we're in bunches. It's hard for offensive linemen.
Is it because of the crowd of bodies?
It's a crowd of bodies, and you don't necessarily know if the nickel is coming and so many different things. You have to sort
Plus,
it.
those routes have to develop a little bit,
But if that guy is at 5 or 6, now we can communicate, cowboy, he's coming to you. Now you bump out one man. It's hard to get that communication.
And I wish I could explain this really well, because an offensive line coach explained it to me, and I have my notes in my office. I didn't bring them with me. But there's a difference between what people call slide protection and sort protection. And sort is different, because slide is essentially, you're sliding your line, but you're sliding because you're really responding to one guy.
Right.
Sort, you're kind of dealing with a bunch of people, and you kind of got to figure it out.
I always thought that, to your point, that the slide was when you saw an edge blitz, whereas a sort, if they bring linebackers into the gap, and you may have to not know who's coming, and your interior. I always thought that was an interior versus exterior thing.
I'll try to bring that in next week, because
the sort a lot of time has to do with the running back as well, because the running back has multiple responsibilities. Right, he could be front side, he could be back side, based on what the defense is doing, and he has to sort to get to that. And that right there can be a lot of dangerous things.
And they've been better in pass pro, the running backs, but this game, and we talked about this on our show on Friday, this is where Mailata, his lack of experience, because these blitz packages are unlike anything they're going to see, and him to be able to sort, what's going on, who's doing what, it's got to happen quickly. It's going to be a test for him.
Yeah, that's why I say get it like. If you're usually the bunches and the chips are usually for a dominant 4-man front where you just need a little extra help. Just make it a clear picture for a guy like Mailata.
Hey,
make it a clear picture.
Maybe this game they go empty a few more times, because empty spreads it out. I think Hurts is a smart quarterback. I know he's not super experienced, but I think he's a worker and he's smart. You spread it out. You force these corners, who are not great, to have to match up on the edges, and now you can see what they're going to do. And the other reason you spread it out is if they don't blitz and truly spread it out, you've always got the Hurts running factor.
I was going to say, right? Boom, right up there. Great point. Great point.
One thing off that, Greg, you talk about Hurts as a smart quarterback, and this for Jay too. Where have you guys seen him grow in terms of maturing and seeing it before it happens?
I'll give you a perfect example. Devontae Smith's the first touchdown of the game, right? So that's a cover 4 defense. Right away, once you know that your tight end, it's a 3-by-1. It was trips right, and Devontae was backside. It's cover 4 defense. You know that your tight end has a vertical route, knowing that the backside safety has to take him man-to-man. So therefore, I have a one-on-one right away. He didn't look at anybody else because he knew it right away. That happened like that.
Awesome.
And yesteryear, a couple years ago, that wasn't happening.
That's why I asked.
Because that play is not always to that guy.
That could be a trip side read. But as soon as you see the coverage,
you know it, right? So those types of things, and knowing where he's going with the football, there is not a question in Jalen Hurts' mind where he needs to go with the football.
We're going to talk.
That was an unbelievable route by.
Oh yeah. So
when I saw that, I thought of you, because the way he got. No, I'm serious. Because the way he got McCreary to turn to the sideline
before he moved,
and then he was done.
Make a move out of his spot.
Right.
So
he turned to the sideline, then he can't play the in-breaking route.
So now that route is supposed to happen at 10 yards. Veteran Devontae Smith takes it to 12 because McCreary is still square. You don't want to make a break in front of a defender when he's still square because he can cut you off or defend it.
You had to get him turned.
Let me take 2 more steps so he can turn and I can make this an easy touchdown.
And as soon as he turned, he couldn't cover.
And that's what I'm talking about, playing the game.
Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And told him to go in motion, that it wasn't necessarily part of the play call?
No, it was a mechanic of the play based on the play. It was
Okay.
already preset. That wasn't something that he did.
All right, I was just curious. Because that made it 4 strong, and then initially had Sanders, the back, which most teams do, offset to the boundary side. Okay, what they did is they motioned him to the trip side.
Sanders.
Yeah.
Sanders, the
Yeah,
back
you got
Sanders
four.
I remember
to
the
the
play.
trip side.
Okay.
So now you have 4 receivers to one side against zone, which is almost impossible to cover. There's going to be someone who's in a void. So that means that now there's 4 receivers to the strong side of the formation.
Gotcha.
So it's 4 strong.
It literally takes the backside wheel and the safety away from you.
Everybody has to bump over one.
right.
I watch clinics with like Saban and Pruitt on YouTube. You know, everybody has to bump over one from an underneath coverage standpoint.
All right, more on Jalen Hurts and what the Giants. This should be sort of a matchup of the Giants are going to do what they do, which is blitz, and what Jalen Hurts has done all year has been figure out ways to counteract the blitz and pass
But he doesn't
well
just
against
blitz
it.
though. With Wink, he had so many coaches just blitz because it's. As you say, what
They lead
do.
the NFL in blitzing, so I'm
No,
going to
no,
say
no,
they're
no,
going to blitz.
no.
I know
I'm
what you're saying.
No,
Sometimes they
but
cause the
he
appearance
finds
of
a
it.
way. Like this is, it's simplistic, and you would think theoretically every defensive coach or coordinator calls blitzes because he knows how to find your protections.
Right.
They don't. Not
No.
everyone does. In fact, most don't.
Oh.
He's incredible at it.
Jim Johnson was very good at
Yes,
that as well.
he's just
finding
remarkable.
the protection breakdown.
So that's why I was
Right.
saying today, Mailata's that guy because he's so inexperienced. I'm curious about how he's going to look at this.
And the thing is, Jeff, and the point, and I know Adam had a great conversation with Martindale at a recent combine, which you told
Actually,
me about.
a couple other coaches,
Yeah. But protections are set, obviously, before the snap of the ball. You can't change your protection in the middle of the play.
Right.
So what happens is if you set a defense with a certain number of people to one side, the protection has to account for those people. You can't say, oh, we don't think they're going to come.
Yeah.
You can't say that.
It's true.
So you have to set your protection to account for people.
Sure.
That's why teams show 6-man pressure fronts, 7-man pressure fronts.
Right.
Because they know based on film study how the offense will set their protection. To react to that. And so what Martindale's great at is he knows how you will set your protection in response to a certain front, and then he will come from the other side, which becomes the weakness of your protection.
Right. Your protection scheme is static once the ball is snapped, but your pass rush scheme can change numerically.
Right.
The one guy that has the permission that I know of in the National Football League to change protections is Jason Kelsey. It's very rare. It didn't happen before he got there. It didn't happen while he was there at the beginning. But now he has the ability, because usually they'll have a check for certain fronts, right? The offensive line has checks for certain fronts. So like if they get into they may have a 4-man protection, and if they come out in 5-man, that changes to 5-0 rules.
Gotcha.
Right? And or the only other way is if they have 2 play calls.
Right.
So there's only a few, but Jason Kelce can.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
With Hurts, he has been blitzed on 31% of his dropbacks this year. That's he's in the top 10 in that position as far as how often he's been blitzed. He has a 111.9 passer rating versus extra man pressure, and he's got 9 touchdowns and just 1 interception. This sort of, to me, again, becomes a matchup of this is what you guys do, this is what we do. Jalen Hurts has obviously taken a huge step, as you were mentioning, against the blitz. So we have a Patreon subscriber, Philly Sports Rap, he goes by the name of Tone, and he's wondering if the Eagles screen game will be a counteract today to what the Giants do from a blitz standpoint. And Greg, I'll ask you, when you watch the Giants defense on tape, do you see a lot of teams try to counteract with screens, be it running back, tunnel screens, wide receiver screens, whatever?
I can't answer that 100% because I can't think of every.
Sure.
But I think if you really anticipate blitz in a certain situation, because obviously then you're losing bodies in coverage, that you can do that. Then it becomes. Then you're making a call based on probability and tendency of what you anticipate you're going to get.
Right.
So that becomes, I think, down into specific based on your sense of what the Giants will show you.
Okay.
Based on what I've seen on tape for the last 2 games, they play a large portion of man, and it's press man. So it's very, very hard to get that screen off with a guy unless you're scraping that guy off some kind of way. Right, so I've seen tunnel screens try, but they failed because they were pressed.
Right. What about the old slow delay tight end
I've
screen?
seen slow, but the guy was able to sift through the traffic and make that play.
Right.
So can it be done? You just have to, this is, I don't want to get that. It's too technical to explain.
Too bad they don't have Goddard. He would have been
there's
nice.
There's fake screens like S@1, where you fake out and then you hit the middle of the field.
Yep.
There's screens that are designed for this. Can we get to it? Yeah, this will be a great.
Goddard was their best screen weapon for most
right now. This is a Kelce
It
dream.
might make more sense then to have more conventional screens to your back, because if they're going to play press man on the outside, you can run those guys off, and then all you really have to do is block the linebacker, or if it's a DB, if they're in, let's say, playing 7 DB, block that guy who's responsible for the back.
Right.
So then that could be a better way to go.
One thing about the Giants' pass defense, and I think this goes back to the injuries that they've had since losing McKinney, with Darnay Holmes being banged up, is that over their last 4 games, they've given up a lot more yards and statistics than the way they started the season. In fact, they used to be giving up only 180 passing yards a game, which is really good. Last 4 weeks, it's up to 255. The completion percentage against them is up from 60 to 65%. Yards per pass from 7, which is still really good, to 7.6. And opponent third down rate has gone from 35.2 to 40. That's kind of a significant jump on third down there. So they've been struggling with their injuries in the secondary. There's no doubt about that.
No Darnay Holmes, no Dory Jackson. Those guys are going to be near the defender at the catch point. These guys are not as confident. Moreau is not as confident. McLeod is not as confident.
Moreau's a journeyman.
They're just not as confident. And these guys are starting right now.
Yeah, what's the best matchup?
What is it?
A.J. Brown on any of them?
Yeah.
What is it? I like
Theoretically,
All right. Well, that'll be the challenge for the Giants today, and then yet another favorable spot for the Eagles. We're going to take a split-second break to hear from our friends at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook.
Game night for me is every night. At the place where I meet up with the guys, grab a cold one, and watch the big game on the big screen. So whether it's the money line, the pass line, or a parlay, I'm in it to win. This is my city, and this is my place.
Always, we thank our friends here at Rivers Sportsbook and Casino on Delaware Ave in Philly, where Adam and I pretty soon we'll have a nice watch party. Right now, we're already awaiting a special delivery from our friends at Jack's Bar and Grill.
Hi.
How's it going?
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Excited for the game?
Yeah, can't wait.
How much vodka is in that bottle of water? Not enough.
Wonderful.
Oh, all right.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Sounds good. What's your name?
You're welcome. I'm Laura.
This is
Thank you.
Lauren delivering our drinks
Laura.
for us. Laura, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Again, we thank the
this is
people at
cold.
Jack's
Thank you.
Bar and Grill.
All right.
Go Birds.
That's right.
She says go Birds today. All right. We do have some scores in, by the way, from our viewers. Carl Stevenson says Eagles win 38-10. Danny D, Eagles 37, Giants 12. Marquise Irvin, Eagles 35, Giants 17. Chris Carbaugh, 28-13 Birds. And Philly Groan says 27-13 Birds. I'm sort of seeing a trend in here on these
It's funny. Last year
score
when you would
predictions.
read the scores, the opponent's scores would be for the winner.
Yeah.
People would not pick against the Eagles at all this year.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, as we mentioned, the Eagles are favored for the 12th time in 12 games. They are 7-point favorites, and last I checked, the over-under, I think it moved a little bit from 44.5. No, it's still 44.5 on the BetRivers app or here at betrivers.com. So make sure you're placing your wagers in this wonderful casino or using the BetRivers app. All right, I have to bring this up. It is not something we normally discuss because it's more subjective, but I need input from experts like yourself on this. It has to do with ESPN's power rankings, which is a analytical process for them. They don't just say, I think this team's number one. They have metrics and things that go into
Well, that's
it.
what they tell us.
That's what they tell us.
We're supposed to believe it, right?
I did this the other
According
week.
to their latest, what they call the NFL Power Index,
Right.
they have the Dallas Cowboys as the team with the best chance to win the Super Bowl right now at 28.5%. All right? They have the Eagles fourth on the list behind Kansas City and Buffalo. I don't ever care who's top four. It doesn't matter to me. But when we start talking about analytics and metrics is where I bring up the question. So the first thing I'll say is if the Eagles, according to ESPN, right now have a 13.2% chance to win the Super Bowl, that means Dallas has more than 2 times better of a chance, based on analytics and metrics, to win the Super Bowl. Greg, anything on tape? When you watch,
That's all it matters, right?
yeah, you watch these teams both. You've seen them religiously. Do the Cowboys look like a team? You could convince me that you think they're better, but that they are twice
No.
as good as the Eagles, or so superior in one way or another that
I don't-
this makes sense?
I know the Cowboys' numbers in terms of points scored per game are high.
Okay, and
I
that
would-
counts.
I would say, because I watch these teams every single week.
Uh-huh.
I don't just watch who the Eagles are playing, obviously, because of my job in NFL Films, doing the matchup show. So I've probably seen every Cowboys game.
Mm-hmm.
I would say their offense at this moment in time is not at the anywhere near the consistent level that the Eagles' offense is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think their pass game is at the level that the Eagles' pass game is overall right now. And I had a really interesting conversation with a coach this week, even talking defensively, who thought that the Eagles' defensive front was actually a more challenging front than the Cowboys' defensive front to play against, which I found to be very, from a coach who's played both, by the way.
Okay.
So, no, I mean, if you're just going by the numbers you're giving me, about twice as, that to me, well, number one, it doesn't mean anything to me, and number
Correct.
two, I think it's ridiculous.
I think that defensively they present and put pressure on you because their secondary is so opportunistic. They have
Talking about
3
the
guys.
Eagles?
No, the
Cowboys,
Cowboys.
yeah.
The Cowboys have guys that turn the ball over on the back end, and then you have the best pass rusher, maybe top 3 pass rushers in football.
That's probably fair.
Right? So I think from that standpoint, I don't see how metric-wise you can look at what the Cowboys are playing with receiver-wise. CeeDee Lamb is a very good player, but he needs ball placement in order to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And most receivers do. I don't view him as a number 1 receiver.
You don't put him in that like Diggs,
no.
Jefferson, win
Not
any
even-
route
not
type
even
I don't
guy.
think I put him in the A.J. Brown category.
Yeah,
No.
I would agree with you guys on that.
He's not a guy that's going to win consistently versus a number 1 corner.
Right.
And you have to have help. And Gallup can run, but he's not a large separation guy when it comes to technical. So I think there's a glaring difference between these two teams. I think that if you line up the Cowboys quarterback and receivers and say, choose any offense coordinator and against the Eagles, I think 90% of the time you're going to pick the Eagles.
Right. Here's another baffling thing I find about the index, which is, again, based on metrics and analytics, which I think they try to say it's harder to argue with because it's just empirical data, whatever. But right now, the Eagles are in the driver's seat to win the NFC East, okay? If they win the NFC East, most likely, I think analytically you would say they're probably going to be a number 1 or a number 2 seed. If not the number 2, most likely the number 1. Whoever does it, if the Cowboys make it in as the number 2 team in the NFC East, the highest they could be is the 5th seed, right? They're the best of all the wild card teams,
divisional winner,
which means
right.
they have to
right.
Which means they have to start their playoffs potentially with an extra game, be on the road, and then maybe have to win on the road until they would maybe have to face the Eagles or whatever. Maybe there's an upset, but from a purely analytical standpoint, if the Eagles are the NFC East champs, which they are driver's seat for, their road to the Super Bowl and therefore winning it, to me, I don't see how it could be twice as small as the Cowboys, who would have a larger obstacle in front of them.
They have a 3-game lead now because they beat the Cowboys.
That's the whole point on the analytics. They are in the driver's seat to get a higher seed than the Cowboys, and then make the Cowboys have to win road games. So I don't
remember
understand
Brandon Graham said, BG said it must be the Cowboys guy, but this is
So you guys are with me. None of this makes sense.
People are responding to the fact that the Cowboys have averaged something like 36, 37 points a game since Dak Prescott came back,
Look who
something
they
like
played.
that. And the numbers seem really impressive.
Yeah.
But
it's been turnovers though.
Yeah, I don't know what those numbers mean. I'm just being honest.
Listen, if you just said to me, I think the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl, I'm not going to argue with you because anybody can win, who's good can win it. But if you start to present to me numerical evidence that states they have a 2 times better chance to win the Super Bowl than the Eagles, that's where I say, well, what is the evidence that suggests that other than just points scored? Like, it's got to be more than that to me,
You also have to the problem is they're not looking at the way the teams are playing right now. That Prescott, has he played great since he come back?
He has not.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He just does not play. Hurts has been so much better. It's not even close.
Aren't the Cowboys not as good as home also?
Well, you've been in that stadium, but it's not a great home stadium. And
it's
by
not
the
a
way,
great
the Eagles
home
one of the best road teams in the National Football League since Sirianni has been the head coach. They only have 3 road losses since he's been the head coach.
11-3 on the road.
Yeah.
That's really impressive.
What do you think about that, Jay? 11. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine. I was looking up the Cowboys' strength of schedule. Maybe I'm missing something because usually when it comes to those like analytics, it'll go based on the teams that have been played. And I know the Eagles have, I think, 4 or 5 signature wins, like the Titans, the Cowboys, the Vikings, the Commanders now since they have a winning record, and maybe they're looking at a strength of schedule. And I know that's the reason why they continue to put the Chiefs there is because they're in a tougher AFC division and they play tougher teams.
Right.
But other than that, I don't see, if you're looking at both these teams, the head-to-head was so one-sided.
Right.
Yeah, they didn't have Dak Prescott.
Right.
But they were able to stop their strength. They had all of their defense there.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is, and we haven't talked a lot about it because we're looking ahead, but all of us, I think, thought to some extent that last week's game against Tennessee, I know,
would be more competitive than
we did.
Oh, yeah.
We did,
that,
for sure.
Tennessee's a physical team on both sides of the ball, that even if the Eagles were to win, it was not going to be a blowout type game.
Right.
Because that doesn't happen to Tennessee. And the Eagles kind of blew them out, and they kind of physically blew them out.
Oh, yeah, they were the
What no one saw.
No,
it
wasn't just a big play here or there. Sometimes that happens in a game. You make a big play and you can win a game.
Right.
The Eagles physically beat them. And, I don't think that's...
You don't say that a lot when you watch tape, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's being talked about a lot because, I do Nashville radio every week. And, Tennessee is a physical, violent, tough team that does not get blown out.
No, they usually make you play their style of game.
Correct. Even if you beat them, you play kind of the way Tennessee. The week
low scoring.
They lost to Cincinnati, but it was 20-16.
Yeah.
They play those kinds of games.
Right.
And the Eagles kind of killed them.
Yeah.
And, I thought that was a really impressive game for the Eagles.
Maybe, yes. So I think that, first of all, that was very surprising to me. I think that was one of those games that there had to be a lot of conversations that, from a player's perspective, the way the special teams came out and played with their hair on fire, the way that they talked the Titans up, the coaching staff, like this is a physical team, they'll embarrass. Like I thought that was one of those games, like, okay, we're grown men too. And we're tired of hearing this. That's what it looked like to me from the outside. And I think the Cowboys are getting a lot of credit for their early season win versus the Bengals. That's what I just looked up. I said,
that's right. I forgot about that.
Why are they getting that much credit? Maybe because the Bengals are ascending now, and now that win counts for more.
Right. Still, though, just one team. It's just very odd. All right, food from Jack's, as we were mentioning, is now available at Bet River Sportsbook every weekend for every Birds game. It includes $2 Miller Lites, $15 bottomless chips and salsa, and $12 pretzel bites, along with $16 easy peel shrimp. They've got the home field advantage spin to win contest for bettors who place qualifying game day bets at the Bet River Sportsbook. It's held every Birds home game. You enter by placing at least a $50 bet on a pro football game. Maximum number of entries per wager is 3 per transaction. 8 winners get pulled via random drawing to spin the wheel. Prizes include free play, cash, 2 tickets to an Eagles game, home game, and if the Eagles win, 2 more winners get selected. Don't forget, they've also got the Choose the Champs Weekly Pick'em Challenge for their Rush Reward Remembers. It's all that here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook, where Philly loves a winner. All right, let's talk a little bit about, we've talked a lot about the Eagles' offense against this Giants defense. We're going to turn the tables. Giants offense, it is what it is. It is a heavy run offense. If Saquon Barkley plays today, which Adam tends to think he will, I saw him on the TV walking down the tunnel, so I'm sure they're going to try to at least
does it, man.
warm it up.
I would move that spread. What's it, 7?
Oh, boy.
11 or 12.
Yeah.
I don't know how they would score.
I would agree. He is back to his old form. He's leading the NFC in rushing, 4th in the NFL. He's got 1,055 yards, along with 8 touchdown runs. Giants are the 6th best rushing yards per game, and they are 12th in yards per carry. Greg, it's interesting for the Eagles. Sometimes it's not about who the running back is against them. It's the scheme that they're facing. You know, we've seen the Eagles actually fare well against a Derrick Henry and against a Jonathan Taylor after that first drive, and then struggle with the way Green Bay attacked them in their run game at times. How do the Giants run the ball with Saquon Barkley? What is their erratically? Okay, go ahead, explain that.
Lately, especially.
You know,
that's a great comment that you just said.
It's true, by the way.
It is.
Radical.
I loved it, and I understood it right away.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
You know, this is going to come off, and Adam and I joke about this as well. I don't really do takes and controversy, okay? And this is going to come across to people as a controversial statement, okay?
Okay.
It is not.
Hold on, let me buckle up.
Yeah. I've watched Saquon Barkley since his second to last year at Penn State, okay? And I know you're a Penn State guy.
Oh, no, but I think I know what you're going to say, and I agree with you.
Please don't take this personally.
Trust me, I won't.
Okay.
I love the way he sets it up.
Yeah.
I absolutely know what you're going to say.
But Saquon Barkley, and I made this note this week intentionally. I've thought this for years since I've been watching it, but I knew doing the show I wanted to have it in front of me. So here's what I typed, and this is true when you watch his tape. Barkley, despite his size and weight room strength, is not an efficient confined space runner. That limits him from being a consistent, sustaining runner who gets the hard yards. He does not get hard yards. He goes down way too easy. He does not have great contact balance.
Right.
He's an explosive, big play runner. That's what he is. So could he have 2 30-yard runs or a 60-yard run? Absolutely. Could that give him 150 rushing yards? No question.
Right.
But last week, you got to think about this, and this I thought about this long and hard. Last week, the Giants get the ball late in the third quarter with a 20-13 lead, okay? They tried to win this game running the football, which a lot of teams, particularly the Giants, but a lot of teams would do because that's sort of what you do. You know, you get in, you're ahead, you try to run the ball, you know, stay ahead of the sticks, eat some clock.
Sure.
They couldn't do it. Yep. There were 2 or 3 plays where I was watching and Barkley took the handoff. There was one in particular, and I think it was a DB, hits him in the backfield. He went down like he was the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wizard of Oz.
Right.
I mean, he just goes down. You know, he is not.
Would you also add that his vision as a runner is not elite?
I would say that that's fair too.
Yeah.
But he is not one of the best expressions I ever heard was from Rod Rust when he used to come in and watch tape with me, and he would talk about backs getting hard-earned yards.
Yep, hard yards.
Barkley, to me, has never been that kind of. I mean, there are plays you could certainly point that out. I don't want to say it's never.
Right.
That's
it's not his definable trait.
but I don't think that's his game.
Right.
I think injury plays with that as well. If you're a guy and you're injured a lot, you start to go down a little bit more.
And then you could be right.
You start to go down a little bit more.
Or if you're Sam Bradford, you start throwing those 5 to 10 yard checkdowns a lot more.
Mentally, it gets tough. You know, I seen Peyton Manning, turn into, a mole later in his career.
Right.
You know, those types of things happen when you start to get injured. As far as sporadic or
erratic,
yeah, he is that as a runner. I think that you have to be unpredictable with running the ball versus the Eagles, and I thought that's what the Packers were able to do in situations, like be able to take a chance on a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. This team, if they can get you timed up, is as dangerous as a football team as it can be because they can rush. If they know it's a known passing down, they're going to get after you. And they try to make it that way. That's why you see the last few games, Linval Joseph on first downs.
Yep.
He rotated this past game with the big fella, Jordan Davis.
Right.
On first downs.
Right.
So they can get you into a situation where they can pass rush you.
Right.
So you have to be erratic when it comes to your play calling with running the football versus the team. In some known passing situations, you got to be able to run.
I would think the Giants would want to be able to, with a guy like Barkley, would love to be able to run out of 11 once they have the firepower to cause, get
you mean to
lighter
get the Eagles in their 4-2 as opposed to their 5-man front?
Yes, and also based on what you said about his running style, it almost feels like they have to maybe put some extra tight ends and make the spaces for it.
Right. I would argue, too, in this game that I think you have to be very concerned about Daniel Jones as a runner.
Yes.
That's next on my list.
Okay.
No, that's okay.
They use him with design runs. He has a history, certainly against the Eagles, but the point is they use him as a runner, but design runs, and they use him in multiple ways. I think he scored a touchdown this year against Chicago, where they actually showed almost like a zone counter concept, and he came out the other way and scored a touchdown. I mean, so they do a number of things with him in the design run game that I think you have to be 100% aware of as your game plan for this team.
All right, by the way, real quick, running backs in 2022 who have runs of 20 or more yards. The top 6 here. I'm sorry, top 6. Nick Chubb has 12. Saquon Barkley tied with Tony Pollard for 8. Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, 7. You know what's really fascinating about that list of 6? Is that 4 of them could potentially be on new teams next year. 4 of them are on the final year.
And by the way, Barkley
deal.
Can break, like I said, he could break a 50-yarder any time.
Right.
So I'm not saying they're going to hold him to 11 for 30 like they did with Henry.
I'm
just talking about what he is as a runner.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
I think Miles Sanders has actually improved in vision and toughness.
Tough yards. That's
with
what
his
I was
running.
I would
Do
agree.
you think he's been getting the dirty yards this year?
Sanders?
Yeah.
Much more so than in years past.
Yeah.
That's important.
And his ball security has been far better.
Yes.
One on the ground.
Yes.
76 yards away from 1,000 for Miles Sanders, I believe, going into this game.
What is he up to touchdown-wise? 8 to 10?
Yes.
I just
9 or 10
I think he has
touchdowns.
8 or 9 touchdowns.
Zero last season.
The Daniel Jones thing that I think you may be getting into that he just mentioned.
Yeah.
It's surprising to me that he hadn't been hurt because he doesn't get down fast enough, and he's not a physically imposing runner. And they use him a little bit too much on read options and things of that nature, and he doesn't slide.
He's not elusive like Josh Allen or Hurts.
Or Hurts has a
straight
big
line,
base where he can take a little bit more.
Right.
I'm surprised someone hadn't tagged him. This may be the week.
All right, well, we'll get to him in a second. First, I want everybody to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. Make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHL Sports Nation. To your point, gentlemen, I looked up the most career rushing yards against the Eagles, not career, since 2019, since Daniel Jones entered the league. Ezekiel Elliott, far and away, number 1, 589. Saquon Barkley, much further down at number 2, 230. Antonio Gibson, 219. And then Daniel Jones, 212, fourth leading rusher against the Eagles since the start of 2019.
The wide 9.
But he averages 8.5 yards per carry, which bested all.
One stumble.
Well, I was going to say that really long run where he stumbled.
Yeah. To your point, I was going to make a joke that you said he's not a very physically imposing runner, and I was going to say the turf at it MetLife Stadium would agree with you on that.
No,
Is that here? Oh no, the turf at the Link, right? Would agree with you.
Yeah, that was the
was.
game that he did that. He fell down, and then Melvin Ingram dropped one too.
How much
wheel route.
of Jones's runs right now
Evan Ingram.
are scripted versus unscripted?
Say that again?
How much of Daniel Jones's runs today do you expect will be scripted versus unscripted? Yeah.
Well, I can tell you for a fact that they even tell him on certain dropbacks that if he sees it to just go if it's a called pass.
Okay.
So, that's hard to know exactly. But no, there will be designed called runs for Daniel Jones without question.
Gotcha.
I think the game dictates that. We'll see how the game goes, but that will be part of their game plan. I think much of that will be how they want to do it. Do they want to do it out of base personnel? Do they want to do it out of 11? Mm-hmm. How much of 2 tight ends do they want to play against the Eagles, particularly in early downs when they would get the 5-man front, the 5-man odd front, which, is tougher to run on than the Eagles' 4-2 front.
Right.
So, these are all game plan things that they'll be discussing during the week, for the Giants, trying to figure out how best to move the ball.
Were you surprised?
2 and 3 tight ends a lot last week.
Yeah.
2 and 3 tight ends.
Because Bellinger was back.
Right. Were you surprised at all when Brian Daboll became the head coach of the Giants, knowing what he did in Buffalo, that he brought Mike Kafka in to be his play caller? I think a lot of people thought Brian Daboll initially would be the play caller.
Yeah, it's interesting how, first of all, the way we actually put this out back in February, I think, he made a decision. He wasn't going to wait. I know he claimed he announced it in May. Everyone was told it was going to be right when he got the job. Want Kafka to do it. By the way, it's not like he isn't very involved. Daboll's very involved, but it's sort of communal like it is in Philly. The O-line coach, Bobby Johnson, he's more of the run game coordinator like Stoutland.
Yeah.
You've got
good coach,
Kafka.
By the way.
Yep. You've got Kafka who's he calls the plays and he puts together passing game concepts as he did with the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. And Daboll oversees it all. He gets the game plan. If he doesn't like something, he might want to take it out, but it really works. And we said this earlier, I cannot wait to see what happens when they actually get a good group of pass targets next year.
Yeah.
Because then the Eagles are going to be really challenged.
Well, the Giants, we already talked about their defense. It's got some players on it. They just need to they sort of remind me like the Eagles. They just had to get a little bit more offensive firepower and see what they can do with their core players.
They'll get OBJ.
They'll what?
They'll get OBJ again.
But he won't be playing to the playoffs. He already said he doesn't need
it. He may not get him this year. He'll be back there in the future.
It's sort of fascinating to see what they're going to do with both the quarterback and the running back moving forward. If I had to pick one, I think they might take the quarterback maybe on the franchise tag for a year and let the running back walk. But then that's a big part of what they're doing right now.
You know what? Fans tend to think, if you don't have a good quarterback, we just, let him go and go get another one.
Right.
They don't fall out of the sky.
Yeah.
Say what you want about Daniel Jones, and no one would suggest he's a top 10 NFL quarterback. That's not my point. But you can line up and play with Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, you get rid of him, and then you wonder, okay, who am I going to line up and play with?
Hopefully not Jake Fromm.
You don't think that Gardner Minshew can lead this team to the same record?
That's a
he
good
does
question.
execute an offense well.
He doesn't run like Daniel Jones.
I know he doesn't run like him, but I don't think that Daniel Jones is a guy that you're sitting there, let me pay this guy $30 million.
They're not going to do that.
No.
They're not
his point was just you just move on to somebody else.
What is the franchise tag
Tag's
now?
going to be up there. It's going to be
$30
million.
million.
Yeah, but sure. You know what? For 1 year, that's not it's tough. But when you're in a transition like they are, and then you're not going to pay a running back, you'll be out of the Darius.
Plus, they could still draft a quarterback.
You'll be out of the Galladay contract. I mean, I would think that they could make it happen and still be able to draft a kid maybe second, third round. Yeah. All right, given Kaiser White's status for the Eagles today, which is good, no injury dezegation, it stands to reason T.J. Edwards, Kaiser White are going to be the Eagles linebackers today, but we do not want to have this show without discussing Nakobe Dean finally getting in on defense last week and providing a spark also on special teams. He played a season-high 15 snaps against the Titans after playing just 4 total snaps for the first 10 weeks or 11 games of the season. He led the team with 6 tackles, had 5 solo tackles, and I think a lot of people by now, I hate to do this one thing, but there is a video circulating of sort of this one-handed wraparound tackle of Derrick Henry where he might have been getting held. by a lineman. But Jason, I know you talked about it with Quentin Michael on the Q&A podcast on Inside the Birds that came out Tuesday morning, just about what you felt about his presence on defense and even on special teams. What did you see?
I thought he looked like he belonged. And the first thing that I saw was him show up on special teams. We haven't seen much of a sighting of him on special teams. Like I said, that was a come to Jesus type of meeting this week when it came to the Eagles. Because when the last time you heard a city talk about one side, special teams exclusively for an entire week? You know, so I thought that he looked like he belonged. There was a few plays that just flashed, the one that he made the tackle for loss in the backfield, and then the one where there was a guy on his body and he just threw it in there. And that's the type of play that I've been wanting the safeties to make, where it's kind of a 50-50 play, but you just throw your body in it. And that's what NFL football players do.
Right.
The good ones make those types of plays when there is an obstruction or an inability to get your entire body wrapped around a guy. You just throw it in there. And that's what you want to see from a linebacker. He made that play, and it looked like an NFL starting linebacker's play. You know.
Before I get your analysis on it, Greg, Adam and I, after the Washington game, had a lot of fans especially reaching out, say, you know, the way Washington sort of ran the ball methodically up the middle on them a lot. There was a lot of getting Nakobe Dean in there. And I got a couple of unsolicited, I don't know if you did too, I think you did, people who are in the league reach out and say, Nakobe Dean could be a good linebacker, but the whole downhill thing was not, he's not going to be the cure-all for the Eagles' run defensive issues that are starting up the middle. He's not necessarily the most downhill.
He's not the biggest guy.
Because he's not the biggest guy, and that's one of the reasons that he wasn't a first or a second rounder. What do you remember about studying Nakobe coming out of college and what you thought he'd be in the NFL?
I mean, I liked him. I thought that he was used in a certain way at Georgia because I watched so much Georgia tape. I felt like I knew Kirby Smart's calls after a while because I had to go through
4 linemen, 3 linebackers.
I had to go through all their games like 3 different times because of all their players on defense. Dean was used heavily as a blitzer at Georgia. He was very good at that. He's an aggressive mentality kind of player. He's small and looks small on tape. I would read 0 into what happened last week. Do we even know? Is he now going to be part of the rotation, or is he not going to? I
imagine today he goes back to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what he is right now. I mean,
right.
You know, he played at Georgia, so there's an automatically a sense, which is true with certain schools, Georgia, Alabama, schools like that, that the guy, because he was an All-American at Georgia, that he must be great, and therefore he's better than T.J. Edwards and Kaiser White, just because he played at Georgia, and people thought he could have been a first-round pick. And I guess the league told you he was a third-round pick.
Yep.
You know, I've had these conversations with a lot of personnel people. You know, when people think, oh, well, he could have been a first. Well, no, the league told you he's a third-round pick.
Right.
If he was a first-round pick, he would have been drafted there.
Yeah. The only problem is when a guy like Jalen Hurts succeeds this way, people say, well, the league was wrong. Well, yeah.
Yeah, and then if a guy makes it, people said, well, he should have been drafted.
Right.
Well, there's always guys who make it, and then there's guys who don't make it who are first-round picks, and but the league saw him as a third-round pick.
Right.
And because I know when the Eagles drafted him, everybody was like, oh my God, this guy was a top 20 pick, and the Eagles got him in the third round. Mm-hmm. Well, no, he wasn't a top 20 pick.
Right.
He was a third-round pick.
Right.
And there were some concern.
That's the way it works.
There were some injury concerns with him, right?
So I don't know. I mean, I liked his tape. I mean, but I thought he was used in a specific way in the context of a really good defense.
Right.
And I thought to myself, maybe he's a nickel player in the NFL, a guy that you can use as a blitzer. He has a great feel for that. I would definitely have questions about his ability to play at his size as a true stacked backer, in a run front. I think that's an open question. So we'll see.
Can I ask Greg this question? What guy with his measurables succeeded?
People would probably look at, he's a little smaller, but someone would look at Zach Thomas. Someone might look at Nick Bolton from the Chiefs, who's under 6 feet.
Having a great year.
Who's been a really good player, second-round pick, and he's been a 3-down player for the Chiefs. And I think he was 5'11 and a half, 232 pounds at the combine, something like that. Zach Thomas is too good an example because the guy's,
he's tackling machine.
Right.
Yeah, and he's just a different
London
cat.
Fletcher
Borderline Hall of Famer.
Too.
Yeah.
London Fletcher has to have him about 30 pounds, though. 20.
Right,
London
right.
Fletcher was
Stocky,
a bowling
right.
ball.
I mean,
Right.
Dean, I think, was about 220, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Give or take at the
His
combine. I don't remember the combine
His pro day
numbers.
was really bad. He had a pectoral injury or something.
Injury, yeah.
And I talked to a scout who was at the pro day. He said he absolutely should not have worked out.
Right.
He did not look right.
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 That
So,
didn't help
I
him.
mean, it's the Georgia thing. Again, we hope in Philly he becomes a great player. That's not my point.
Yeah.
But my point is there are questions about him given a number of things that made him a third-round pick. And we have to wait and see. I mean, he may not get another snap, unless somebody gets hurt or unless there's a blowout. He may not get another meaningful snap in a regular season game here.
Oh, also, inactives. There are no surprises for the Eagles. Ian Book, as usual. Trey Sermon, who actually was added to the injury report on Saturday.
With an illness, yeah.
Right. He's inactive anyway. Bradley, we knew about. Janoris Robinson, who just came off IR. Josh Stills once again, and Suapeta, also inactive. And looks like Saquon Barkley is active.
Josh Sills, no relation to Giants wide receiver David Sills, I don't think. So,
No.
who is probably not going to play very many snaps today if he's inactive. Did you say any word on
It looks
Saquon
like Barkley is active.
All right.
The Giants inactive. David Sills is inactive.
Oh, there you go.
Rodarius Williams, Shane Lemieux, who's out with a toe injury, Azudu with a neck. Lawrence Cager, the former receiver for the Jets, and Leonard Williams, as we told you earlier, would be inactive.
Well,
He
David
is.
Sills has come a long way for being offered a scholarship.
To play at USC.
When he was
quarterback
10 years
at
old?
USC,
When he
yeah.
was 13 years old
13, yeah.
to be as a quarterback.
At Red Lion Christian in Delaware.
That's right.
Oh,
That's
man.
right. Wow.
So, Adam, in general, with the Eagles linebacker situation, as we put a bow here on Dean, I mean,
Sure.
the one thing the Eagles do have, and they can, if they're comfortable with the direction, is we know that T.J. Edwards and Kaiser White are both on one-year deals here, and they have Nakobe Dean waiting in the wings. So it'll be kind of fascinating. You could say they have some leverage here in
Eagles
how they
do.
want to do
And
it.
by the way,
a ton of them.
the Eagles have a lot of guys on one-year deals. They can't sign everybody.
Right.
So I mean, it could be a situation where they say, "Hey," and I don't know how, you may know. I don't know how Dean's doing in practice and all that.
He's going to play next year.
He's going to play next year.
Yeah.
he's
One of the
gonna
two
play
won't
next
come
year.
back. Yeah.
So would you
One of
say
those-
There's too many one-year deals.
Yeah,
is he
too many
the
one-year
Kaiser
deals. One of
White
those guys.
replacement or T.J. Edwards? It sounds like
Kaiser
what
White.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds like you
So
see
you
it
think
more
White
as
won't
a
be here next year?
Kaiser
No.
White.
Yeah.
No.
So it's TJ, if TJ's back, TJ and Nakobe Dean, as opposed to having Kaiser White and Nakobe
Right.
Dean.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense, given their skill set.
C.J. Edwards has been another guy who, under this staff, who's just taken a major jump.
Yep.
I just don't think he could go away from him.
Right. All right, real quick, as we talk about, there was another rookie who made an impact on defense last week. Reed Blankenship got his first start, Middle Tennessee State. How unbelievable is that? Because the guy on the other side for the Titans, Byard, one of the best safeties also from Middle Tennessee State.
I know.
Played good,
we
too.
Thought that was interesting. Yeah. How
Played
about
sound. He didn't give up plays.
Yeah. You like it?
He played solid this
Yeah.
game. It was solid.
Do you think
Solid
him
play.
being a natural safety in run defense helped the Eagles as opposed to CJ, who's sort of moved to that spot? And although he gives you great playmaking, we've seen his tackling leave some to be desired.
I think this is it's so funny because Reed will be a sound football player. He'll come down and make the tackles, be aggressive toward the line of scrimmage. He wants to be there. But will he give you the splash play? And that's the thing that's kind of hard to quantify.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because you can be a guy like Trayvon Diggs, say let's take it to the Cowboys. That'll get you 6, 7, 8 interceptions at time, but it's going to also give up 7, 8 touchdowns. And would you rather just have a guy that's solid?
Yeah. No, I was in no way suggesting that.
Well,
Reed should play
No,
over
I'm not
CJ.
saying playing
Okay.
over. I'm just saying that's the difference. Like CJ
give
is
and
going to
take.
give you the splash.
Yep.
And with this team, it's a good thing because you have an offense that's so dynamic.
Right.
So yeah. So I definitely believe that he's a solid football player.
I thought Blankenship made a play that probably went unnoticed. It was the first 3rd and long, which may have been on the second possession. It was 3rd and 7. And just so people can understand this, when you play a split safety coverage, okay? Very often in split safety coverage, more often than not, receivers can't go from one side of the field to the other side. There's always exceptions, but I'm talking about, let's say, a 2x2 set. 3x1 is different. But in a 2x2 set, 2 receivers to each side, they really can't go to the other side because there's no one there. Because what eventually happens is in zone is you're playing your side for the most part.
Right.
Okay. So Blankenship made a play which probably went unnoticed. It was 3rd and 7, and it turned out to be an incompletion to Hooper, to the sideline. Okay. But he had to play inside leverage as the safety. Okay. And you can't, and he had to do that because he couldn't let Hooper cross his face because the players on the other side were dealing with the two on that side.
Sure.
So he played inside leverage, and then he had to react to Hooper's route, which was an out route, and you can see he's not a great athlete, but he got there, and the throw was incomplete. And just to me, that was a simple play, just executed really well, understanding how to play his leverage, understanding when to react, because I think it was cover 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was cover 4. I know what you're talking about. Left sideline?
Yes.
Left sideline,
Yes.
That was a good job by the underneath defender making him elevate the ball too.
Correct. But I mean, just simple things like that, those are good plays. They don't result in a turnover, although they punted, so, it gets them off the field. But, those are the things I think coaches look for, just playing the coverage the right way.
Right.
Because interceptions and sacks, they don't happen every other play.
Sure.
It's more about playing the right way, and I think Blankenship's one of those guys.
What's Cannon's phrase? Alignment, assignment, technique?
That's what it is.
Fundamentalism.
And in training camp, when we were hearing he was almost a lock to make the team, an undrafted free agent, he doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
He his testing numbers weren't good. That got him not drafted, but I think he was a 4-year starter, if I'm not mistaken.
He was a 5-year starter.
5-year starter?
Yep.
Wow.
Really?
Well,
going from one game to the other, where he's basically responsible for 2 touchdowns given up versus Green Bay, you didn't notice him, and usually that's a great thing.
For a safety.
For a safety.
And that's true. Listen, this
you don't want to start noticing safeties in a bad way.
Much different conversation because he's probably a backup in this league. I mean, of course, but also the Eagles' safeties are on 1-year deals. It's both CD and Marcus Epps, so it's just kind of fascinating to see what's going to happen this offseason.
That's a tough call.
This is looking a lot like the Rams. I hope it don't go that bad. I hope it doesn't go that bad.
Trade all their picks away. They got picks.
We have picks to work with, though.
All right, we say it all the time. When you have a show as good as this one, it's the content, and that's it. No, it's the production. It's our production team that brings it all to life. It's Public Square and Rebel Hill. The team of James and Zach are back behind controls, bringing Inside the Birds to you in high definition with great graphics, videos, and more. Contact Public Square Media and Rebel Hill Productions to produce your webcast, podcast, live show, or anything else you can dream of. This team can bring it to life. They do it every Eagles game day right here at Inside the Birds Pregame Live, and we thank them. All right, wanted to finish this up a little bit, talking about the Eagles' defensive line, the pass rush they've been able to generate lately. Unlike the counterpart Wink Martindale, we know that Jonathan Gannon does not prefer to blitz very much. Selectively. In fact, I think since the start of this season, they've even come down a little bit.
They have.
They're down. He surprised people just being in the top 15 at one point.
The Fangio defense is that they're running. He was always in like the middle.
Right.
He just would pick his spots.
It's selective. That's the right word.
It's just really not. That's not the philosophy. And by the way, it's working.
Right.
Oh, I just saw this today. By Next Gen Stats, Josh Sweat, who we don't talk about enough, 9th best pass rusher by their metrics as a pass rusher.
I think he's having a great year.
Yeah. I know you think even in a different scheme like a wide 9, he'd probably be even more impactful from a sack standpoint.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, the Eagles have 25 sacks in their past 6 games. That's more than 4 sacks per game. If you guys remember the first 6 or 7 games, they had actually averaged less than 3 sacks per game, and even that number was inflated by that Washington game, which wound up being an anomaly.
They're second in sacks, but behind the Niners?
They are now second in sacks behind Dallas. Oh, that's why they got. Now I figured out why Cowboys are 2 times more likely to win the Super Bowl. They have like 3 more sacks than the Eagles do, so it must be that. In the past 6 games, Javon Hargrave, 7 sacks, Reddick, 4.5, Josh Sweat, as you just mentioned, 4, and yet, as we talked about.
How many games was that?
The past 6 games.
That's a lot of production.
Yes.
Wow.
Hargrave's 7 sacks have come in 2 of those 6 games, by the way. We talk about this. You were just mentioning this. This is what we call the execution-style defense, because we had a question, will Jonathan Gannon do this, that, and the other this week to counteract
Really doesn't
Saquon,
change.
and
He doesn't
there's not
do
much
that.
change in there.
Unless
what he
it's the
does.
run. I mean, they can
Right.
play the run differently, but not.
Well, they dominated the Titans' offensive line.
Right.
It wasn't a competition at all.
No.
Yeah.
No, there was a competition on pass rushers meeting at Ryan Tannehill. Who can get there first?
They dominated those guys.
One thing I want to ask Greg, though, on this matchup, on the offensive line versus Eagles' defensive front.
Sure.
Evan Neal just came back from his MCL sprain. How's he played in the little he's played?
Evan Neal has an issue that has to be cleaned up. I really liked Evan Neal coming out, and I knew he had this issue, and I think it can be fixed. Evan Neal has a problem when he gets to the top of the arc, that he loses his balance and he's a bender at the top of the arc. And that's going to have to be cleaned up.
Right.
Because it's too easy to get beat that way.
Isn't that like the number one thing for offensive, not to be put on the ground?
Well, it's not that he falls down, but I mean he lunges
Okay.
because he's clearly uncomfortable. He's feeling stressed. You know, when offensive linemen lose their technique, it's because they're feeling stressed.
Yes.
You know, they don't just lose their technique because they feel like it. It's because they're feeling. It's like corners. You know, when guys lose their technique or lose a little of their base and balance, it's because they're feeling stressed.
Right.
You know, and Neal has to work on that. He has a challenge today, Neal. It's gonna.
Did you see that coming out of Alabama?
I did, and I really liked him, and I think he has good feet, and I think he can be really good, and I think that's coachable.
Right.
But it's been a challenge at times for him in his rookie season, and missing the time, you know, of course, hurts because he's not out there.
Right. You know, Dillard struggled with staying off the ground and not losing his balance, despite the fact that he had dancing bare feet.
It's common for all. It's not a function of athleticism per se.
Right.
So it's because you know Neal's more than fine athletically.
Sure. Go ahead, Jeff.
The Giants have a problem. They're on their third guard right now. They're on their third string guard, and the way Hargrave and you know.
Are you talking about Lemieux or the other guy?
Lemieux's out.
Oh, Lemieux's out. That's right. That's why they're on their third string.
No. Lemieux's out, but it's all
Gates
is
is
that
guard.
Gates? Yeah.
Nick Gates.
Gates
right?
is playing left guard.
Zuda's out.
Yeah,
right.
Zuda. Yeah.
Zuda's out. Yep.
So they're on the third. So they're going to have a tough time with our guys in general.
So
their goal is to run the football today.
And the reality is Feliciano is not a starting
He's
player.
very
in this
limited.
league.
They know this. Yeah. In fact, Jack Anderson is their top. He's their top backup center guard right now because of injury. And Eagles know him very well.
They drafted him.
Yeah.
No,
they
it's
signed
It's
him
the
up
Bills.
the
The
Bills
Bills,
practice
squad,
squad.
right.
The Bills drafted him, and this GM had him in Buffalo.
I was just going to say, it's so funny how things work. When Anderson came into high school, he was considered one of the top 2 or 3 offensive linemen in the country.
Yeah. Really?
And I think he went to Texas Tech, maybe.
Yes, I think it was.
And he was viewed as a major get, like, wow, this guy who could go anywhere. And it's funny how it works. You keep playing and you get to the next level. You know, it's
Reality hits.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Offensive line and defensive line is so hard to judge in high school.
I don't
So
know. Yeah,
hard.
you know,
It's extremely hard.
I think Adam would tell you that I'm pretty good evaluating college players. I would have no idea how to evaluate a 16 or a 17.
It's hard
I
because
would have
guys
no
are
idea.
just so much stronger and they come from, like, there's such a difference
I know.
in programs. Like, one team has a weight room, the other one doesn't. It's just so hard to
That
tell.
contributes to it. Wasn't Josh Sweat a phenomenal high school athlete? And
He was a top 5 recruit in the country.
Was, yeah.
Coming out of Virginia Beach, maybe?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is so consistent. How did you think?
See, well, here's the deal.
Okay.
Real quickly, I know you got to jump in. Josh Sweat in college played in a 4-point stance. And I remember watching Josh Sweat at Florida State thinking to myself, first thing I said to myself is, there's no way in hell he's going to play in a 4-point stance in the NFL.
no way.
But then you have to try to evaluate him playing in a 4-point stance.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's harder because, you know, you're not seeing him do what you know he's going to
I
be
was just
asked to
going to ask
do in
you
the
that,
NFL.
guys. When you watch his tape, does he look? You could tell he's never. Does he look like he was pre-injury? Does he look like
think he looks pretty
100%?
Josh Sweat will never look pre-injury just because he has a noticeable limp.
I
But that
agree.
doesn't
Yes.
stop him
Yes.
from being explosive.
Okay.
Yes.
Right? When he's a guy that when he's walking around, it looks like he has bad knees, like that basketball player that's a little bit older.
Right.
But that doesn't stop him from getting off.
Yeah.
You know, so.
All right, good stuff, good stuff. All right, our friends at MOJO, they are building the sports stock market where you just invest in your favorite players. That's all. Forget about investing in companies you don't know anything about. You know tight ends and running backs and wide receivers and quarterbacks, and it's an opportunity to buy shares in all these players based on career-ending stats. There's no off days, no off season. The prices can rise and fall constantly in real time based on career-long projections. We're going to get to that in a second because that's interesting. You can build on MOJO a portfolio of players that you're buying and selling on your terms every play, every game, every season. There's a multiplier tab that allows you to increase your investment by 5, 10, 15% as long as that player sees his share price rise, of course. It's a great opportunity. Over 300 skill position players across the NFL to choose from. And again, you can build a wonderful, diverse portfolio of players that you believe in that can help make you money. MOJO is available in New Jersey on iOS. And just by downloading the app, you have a chance to win up to $10,000 in free shares of player stock. Just click the link in the description box of this video when you get a chance to get your $10,000 in free shares of player stock. It's only available in New Jersey. You have to be physically available in New Jersey to trade, but MOJO is going to be worldwide at some point. So even if you don't live in New Jersey and you really want to get ahead of the game and see how the prices rise and fall and start your strategy, you can download it wherever you live. So I encourage everyone to get involved with MOJO as soon as they can. If you have a gambling problem, help is available at 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, one Eagles guy I want to go through with MOJO here. Devontae Smith, he's sort of like this guy who's been up and down, like he's not the number one wide receiver. He's up 1.11%, 1.11% after having 5 catches for 102 yards and a touchdown against the Giants today, knowing that they blitz a lot. Are you seeing that? I mean, is this a day where you think A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are going to have great one-on-one matchups?
If the weather stays clear.
Yeah, that's the
right, because like the last time the Eagles played in the rain, the receivers didn't catch the ball that well.
Jaguars game was terrible.
Yeah, they didn't catch the ball that well. So do I think that we can win if the weather's good? This would be a great game, but if it's bad, you try and protect the football, maybe a low-scoring game.
Sure. Now, all it took last week was Kenny Gainwell to have 3 carries for 15 yards and 3 catches for 38 yards. We've been talking about
by the way.
Him finally becoming a part of the passing game for his stock to move up 3.2%. Are we starting to see something here with him in the pass offense? The Giants are going to come after him today. Is there going to be some opportunity? I thought they actually ran him on. Didn't we talk about maybe getting him involved in some Texas routes or some leak outs that you finally started to see?
Well, he got to a check down really quick that looked like it was a route concept. He checked it down really quick, but he made a play. I think that long-term Gainwell is definitely good on a platform like MOJO just because Miles Sanders still there's a lot of free agency needs that other teams will have with our. They're going to pick guys off our roster because of how well the season's going, and I think that he has a chance to be possibly in the top 1 or 2 backs next year for the Eagles. So I think long term it's a great pickup.
All right. The beauty of MOJO is that if you get a guy who nobody expects to be good at a very low price and he winds up being decent, even just decent or pretty good, you can make something nice for yourself. Greg, Brock Purdy. Nobody saw him as the 49ers quarterback at this point of the year. He had an impeccable game.
No one wanted to see him.
And no one wanted to see him, right, except for Brock Purdy, who's like the cockiest Mr. Irrelevant ever. What did you see in Brock Purdy's tape?
Yeah, all we have is what he did last week. And
Correct.
He came in, he handled himself extremely well against a difficult defense to play against. The Dolphins are one of those defenses. It's funny talking about Martindale. Dolphins 6-7 man fronts. They show you a lot. There's a lot of disguise and late movement. He hit some critical third downs where he had to see things really quick. It'll be interesting with Purdy because he's not a particularly talented guy. Obviously, he was Mr. Irrelevant. Did start 46 games in college. He's an extremely streaky player. He's the kind of quarterback, and because he's super confident and has a gunslinger mindset, when he's off, he still attempts throws that he should never attempt. So
that's going to hurt him against the good D's.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. By the way, the guy here replaced Jimmy Garoppolo, injured, down 12% on MOJO. However, if you think he's going to be the Jets quarterback next year and you don't have faith in Mike White, although you probably should, maybe Garoppolo is a guy that right now you want to capitalize on while the share value is low.
There will be a lot of teams clamoring for Jimmy Garoppolo next year.
A lot?
I think so.
Could it be the Giants?
Look at his record. You can say whatever you want about the guy.
I just think, I think
it's hurt a lot.
I mean, I guess Teddy Bridgewater was once in that bowl where you get hurt, but every team would always want him.
It's just not a lot of them, like you said early in the show.
Yeah.
People seem to have a tough time with the idea that the quarterback's the most important position on the field, and Then in the next verse they say Jimmy Garoppolo stinks, but his record as a starter is 40-19.
Yeah, incredible.
So they have a tough time kind of putting those things together, you know?
But that's the same team that also went and drafted a guy in the top three.
Is
That's like new math to me. I don't know.
Jimmy Garoppolo Alex Smith?
I think he's a better thrower than Alex Smith.
Better, probably a little bit better.
I think you mean like
By the way,
his
Alex
career
Smith had a
story.
phenomenal one-loss record in this league.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Phenomenal.
Exactly. I think
But a
Alex.
guy
Smith,
you
I think
probably-
Alex Smith was a very good NFL quarterback over time.
Yes, definitely.
Did you play with him?
But you probably
Yeah.
never felt like you would win a Super Bowl with Alex Smith at the same time.
Alex had the ability to make any throw. Well, that's not right.
He was a cautious thrower.
He was,
Yes.
but he had to see it twice,
yeah.
and usually that's not good. He didn't let it go.
Alex Smith was also what we call a locked front leg thrower, which means he had limitations in his ability to drive the ball with velocity. Because when you lock your front leg when you throw, it's like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah.
You can't throw with the necessary torque.
Donovan
break
had
on.
that, did he not?
Donovan on occasion had that,
Yeah.
which caused major accuracy issues at times.
Good
It's just
stuff.
that Donovan had more of a naturally
Power.
stronger arm.
Power,
Right.
yes.
All right, time for our Players to Watch segment, brought to you by Game Time Watches, the leader in licensed sports watches. Get your favorite NFL, NHL, or MLB team logo watch now at GameTimeWatch.com. Eagles fans, they partnered with us, Inside the Birds, and we're offering a special promo code for 20% off using promo code ITB20. That's ITB20 for 20% off at GameTimeWatch.com. The code applies to basically not just Eagles watches, but not just NFL watches, anything not already discounted. There are so many styles to choose from. They got the varsity style watches for men, shiny face, big team color logo, metallic accents, metal case, thick black silicone strap, make it an everyday style watch. They also have watches for women and kids too. Check them out. Check out the Varsity Drip Art Edition also at GameTimeWatch.com. All right, Jason Avant, your Game Time Watch player to watch today is?
I think I said Jalen Hurts.
You did. You
I
passed
said
the
Jalen
test.
Hurts.
Great job.
The
A+.
reason being, I think it'll be a running game for Jalen Hurts.
So he's going to pass out, or he's going to have a lot of rushing yards, you think?
With how much man they play
Yeah, I like what Greg talked about, spreading them out and then
and
seeing how they
the
react.
rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, your
You know-
your counterpart, Greg Cosell,
You know, we
agrees.
didn't discuss this at all.
I
but
don't believe you.
But that was exactly the reason I picked Jalen Hurts as well.
Jalen
Because I
Hurts
think they're going to
running
get
game.
man and blitz, and I think he's going to leave the pocket, and I think he's going to get a lot of rushing yards in this game.
All right, Adam, who's your Game Time Watch player to watch?
I'm going to go defense. This is the first time I've used this player, but he's had a great season, a breakout season, if you will. And he's going to have a lot of tackles on Saquon Barkley. Heck, he might even have a blitz. And that's TJ Edwards right up the B gap.
All right, Adam with TJ Edwards, Eagles. Somebody had him last week. I thought that was you.
I
huh?
did.
Oh, okay.
I had Reddick, and who
I
had
had
Sweaty?
Sweat.
You had Sweaty, okay.
Yeah, I think
I
we,
had AJ
we got
And they
it.
met at the quarterback.
We all
You were
won.
right.
We all won.
We all got it.
You were
We
right.
all won. That's right. My player to watch today is Devontae Smith. I do think because I believe the rain's not supposed to start until later.
Later, also, his numbers are going way up without Goddard. You
Yeah,
should know that.
yeah. I think he'll be a big focal point of the pass offense today.
Maybe the first time in Eagles history there's two receivers over 1,000.
Oh, in fact, they're going to be because
point.
Brown could go over today, and then Smith's only like 250 away.
Yeah.
Goddard, he could have come close.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, no chance now with the injury.
A.J. Brown, I believe, needs 50 yards to
Yep,
reach
yep.
1,000 today, and you said 250 for today. It'll be a little
That
stretch
range.
for Devontae.
289.
Okay.
All right, let's take
Less than
one last
300.
look at the line. I said it was Eagles are favored on the BetRivers app. We're at BetRivers.com. The Eagles remain 7-point favorites, total of 44.5. Jason Avant, who wins? What's the score?
27-17 Eagles.
All right, Eagles by 10, and my quick math tells me that's 44. So you're taking the slight under on
Yes.
that. All right.
I think I remember my score.
No.
I
Good,
believe
what do you
I
got?
picked 27-13.
You did.
Hey,
Good
you
job.
did.
Oh.
You got it. Greg Cosell.
I just-
27-13.
That's Social Security works. Good job.
I took my medication this morning.
You did. That's why you're so nice today.
All right, so we got two Eagles covers and the under. Adam Caplan, who wins the game?
I've got it low scoring too. 23-16 Beagles.
All right, Eagles push and the under.
Oh, yes.
And I seem to be the most optimistic today. I have the Eagles winning 27-13.
Oh, then the Giants are going to win then.
No.
Same as mine.
27-13. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We are equally optimistic. 27-13. Listen, just as an aside, I think the only way the Giants can really move the ball, as we talked about, is if they can get Eagles in four-man fronts and try to run. I don't think them running against Eagles 5-man fronts is going to work too well.
Also, would you go tempo against Wink Martindale?
Yes.
That would be
That's
smart?
a great
Okay.
I
idea,
would.
too.
Okay.
It's a
I
good
would
thought.
for sure.
Based on the way you brought that up, I'm thinking, wait, what about Wink? Would you not go tempo?
I'd go tempo for a number of reasons. One, which we haven't discussed, was the fact that they're playing a lot of players who don't have a lot of experience and time,
Wow.
and now they got to get
Gilbert.
lined up.
Yep.
Right.
And that's, you know, all it takes is one guy to be not where he needs to be.
Yeah,
There you
this
go.
is a big tempo, shifts and motions
to
make sure that they're
Yeah,
assignment
I think
pure.
if the Giants want to pass, they should probably come out heavy run look, play action, try to loosen the Eagles up, get them into 4-man fronts, and then hit them with. It's almost working backwards, but
Right.
that's the only way I can.
Slayton has given us problems.
I know,
in
he
the
has.
past.
run.
Yeah,
He
Slayton
but that was a
has
different
given us
defense
problems.
today. That was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
one safety.
But he
deep
can run.
defense.
He can
He
run.
can run. He can run. All right. Remember, you can bet the game right here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook in Philly or on the Bet Rivers app. Adam and I about to have a watch party here at the Sportsbook. Big thanks to Rivers, MOJO, Game Time Watches, Sky Motor Cars, the teams at Rebel Hill and Public Square. And thanks to you for joining us on the show. Make sure you check out our coverage of today's game afterward at InsideTheBirds.com. And, of course, Inside the Birds post-game live with myself, Adam Caplan, and former Eagles offensive tackle Trey Thomas. For Jason Avant, Greg Cosell, Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. Thanks for watching Inside the Birds pregame live.
Oh,
shit.